We're back here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. We've had a lot of new listeners lately, so I just wanted to take a quick second and just say welcome. Appreciate you guys and gals that are new to the show. You know, as we are staring season 7, 2026 will be season 7 of the show. It's always nice to have new and engaged listeners, and so just so grateful for you. For you guys and gals that are new, my name is Mike Cunningham. I'm the host here of the Gill Connections podcast. I also serve as the National Business Development Manager here at Gill Athletics, overseeing the Gill brand and all the sports and equipment that oversees that. But the real fun part of my job is right here. I get to host a podcast, and of course on social media at Twitter and at Mike Cunningham and all that kind of good stuff. And just here to bless coaches, to be a cheerleader for coaches, to be an advocate for track and field coaches, and uplift and honor your journeys. And that's what our goal here is in the Gill Connections podcast. Now, before I introduce this week's guest, if you are a longer time listener, you probably hear my voice. You've heard this before. I sound like absolute crap. I sound more baritonish than ever, going for my Darth Vader voice here, I think. Allergies are just absolutely kicking my butt. So apologies in advance. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see me wiping. I got a little tissue. I rarely have a tissue. Wiping my eye because my eye is watering, my nose, my throat. I just sound and look terrible. But, you know, that's pretty par for the course. So apologize for that in advance. But no apologies for today's guest. I have known him for a little while here, actually. He went to my unofficial alma mater. We'll learn more about that. Help me welcome the assistant coach from the great Mississippi Valley State University. Love that school. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Mr. Jquarius Wilson. Jay, what's up, dude?
What up, what up, what up? How you doing? How you doing?
Man, you know, I would like to say I'm doing a little bit better than you from our pre-recorded, but you are doing okay. You had a little bit of setback, but man, I'm just so happy and blessed that you're here with us, and that you still got that same famous smile, my friend. You always get a smile on your face, and I'm always grateful for you for that, man. So I'm glad you're here.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. I'm super excited about this. I've been looking forward to it since I got into coaching and met you. And just even that first time we met out there at the coach convention, and I was making connections like, oh my goodness, you know these people? And then I learned about you and kind of more your background and what you did and, how far back it runs and all. So, I'm excited to be here for sure.
Absolutely, man. You got to, you're one of our younger coaches, meaning you haven't coached for 10, 20, 30 years. And that's exciting to me because it's always interesting to kind of pick the brain of where you are as a, 20-ish year old coach at this point because, I'm in it for the long haul, my friend. So I can't wait to talk to you in 10, 20, 30 years down the line and be like, hey, remember back in 2025? You're like, oh, man, yeah, boy, thank goodness I'm so much better than I was then. I thought I knew everything or what, that's not necessarily the case here, but it's just always interesting to sit in the seat and see the long term of coaches. And so having
Mhm.
someone still pretty young and still learning and growing in our great profession, this is going to be a lot of fun. To see you go from athlete to coach, first of all, is just an amazing run there, man. So I'm excited, very, very excited. Before we begin, one of my favorite activities, one of my little nerddoms, if you will, is I like mascots. I like to know all the different college mascots. I always get Mississippi Valley State mixed up. I always want to call like it's the Fighting Okras, but I think that's like Delta State, or
Correct. That is
maybe they're the Bull Weevils. So I always get that mixed up because somewhere there used to be maybe someone in Bull Weevil. I want to say Mississippi Valley State is I can see it. It's something like a red devil or something like that. What
correct.
is it? Am I right?
You are correct. We are the Mississippi Valley State Devils, and the women are the Lady Devils or the Devillettes.
The devilettes. Okay, yeah, just add ette and everything, and it just
Yep.
makes it feminine, I guess. Okay, very cool. All right, I love that. I just love different mascots. One of my favorite trivia questions. We're going to put you on the spot here. Is
Uh-oh.
the college mascots that don't end in S? So most of them. Devils, Lady Devils, Bulldogs, some that we're familiar with, Trojans, right? 99% of them end in S, but there are a good handful, of good 10 to 20, that don't end in S. Can you rattle off three? Come on, let's think here. You can think
Those
of
three.
three.
You got Alabama.
The Crimson Tide, very good. That's one.
You've got Stanford.
Man, the Stanford Cardinal. You are naming these faster than most people. Very good. And give me one more for good measure.
One more for good measure.
Oh, here we are. We're
And
stuck.
the third one's gonna be the charm. Third one's gonna be the charm, indeed. Because I've seen that before. I remember looking. I was like, "That's interesting," and all. And I remember those two off the top of my head. I want to say, now Virginia Tech is the Hokies. Um, who would it be? Who's another? I think.
I'll give you a hint. I'll give you the conference and the
Give me.
related conference. So Big Ten has
Mhm,
at least one in a school that probably should be in the Big Ten. I think they're more ACC affiliated,
mhm.
is also one of them.
Let's see.
Let's focus on that one. It's a huge school meaning notoriety. I think it's
Yeah,
actually a
yeah,
very
like back home.
small school. They have a very famous NBC football contract. Like all their games go on NBC every weekend. They're in the state of Indiana. I can't give me too many more
Go
hints
to
here.
Houston,
Huh?
Indiana. And you said the state of Indiana.
They're in the state of Indiana, not University of
That's
Indiana,
my
Indiana. They're the Hoosiers, right? Yep, no, but they're in northern Indiana, famous school. You're gonna kick yourself when you hear the name of this school. One of the national brand colleges that are out there.
Oh, oh my goodness, I probably will.
All right, you ready to give up?
Yeah, let me hear it. Let me
All
hear it.
right,
I'll
Notre Dame, the
the Fighting
Fighting Irish. Exactly right.
Irish.
You're like, of course, I should have known that. Yeah,
Independent school could have been one
yeah,
of those.
yeah. I gave a lot of hints there, my friend.
Mhm.
Exactly. The other one I was thinking of in the Big Ten is right here, where we're in Champaign, Illinois, University of Illinois, the Fighting Illini.
I could
Yeah,
have said
yeah.
that too.
Others would be like Tulane, the Green Wave, Tulsa, the
Wave.
Golden Hurricane. I believe Harvard is the Crimson. There's several out there, but you nailed two. I'm very impressed. Most people
Thank you.
struggle to
Thank
even start getting one. You name two, you win the unofficial. There is no prize for that. I love that. But you didn't come here to play college trivia, so let's get into it, Mr. Jaquarius. Not assuming. I do know you were an athlete, so that's actually normally I set this up by saying assuming you were an athlete, but not everybody was. But I do know you were a very good athlete. Take us back in our Wayback Machine here? Where does track and field start for you?
Well, since we, Wayback Machine and we got time, track and field started for me when I was in middle school.
Oh,
So my first year, but I say that, but it just my journey with track is obviously everyone's journey is different, but it's a little different because I mainly played football. Played football when I was 5 years old, all the way up until 17. The first year I did track, I was in the seventh grade. I was at Center Hill High School, new program. It was in its second year of existence at the time. Joined the track team, whom Coach JJ Downs was helped create and garner up and build up from there. I was on the team, but I was in band at the time as well. And so I was on the team, but my seventh grade year wasn't really much to it. Middle school track, new school. We had one meet, and at the one meet we had, I remember I was supposed to run hurdles. Well, I did run hurdles. And it's the only one of the two only hurdle races I ran in my middle school, high school career. So it was 100 hurdles. I remember getting down in it, and I had a band concert right afterward as well. So it was more just like a get it done. Got out there in the blocks, gun went off. As soon as gun went off, my hip popped, right hip. Didn't know what it was. I felt it, and then but I'm middle school. I'm not knowing what to do, what not to do at the time. So I keep running. I finished the race. Didn't finish last. Somebody else failed. But I finished the race, and then I remember my hip was hurting, and then I had to like limp and walk over to the band concert, and then it was right across the hall from the field, so I did that. That was it for my seventh grade year. The next
did
year,
do you did you thinking about middle schoolers and obviously track's not necessarily a priority at this point. Did you get hurt because like did you do like a lack of a warm up, or was this just like the first time you've ever exerted for it? Like why in the world did that happen?
that's actually a really good question. I've never been asked that, and considering when I tell it, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the warm up was or wasn't, what it consisted of. Prior to that, I never ran track.
Right.
I'm sure I warmed up some type of way or did something, but it might have been one of those, they're just getting people in and out real fast. Now I was still playing sports. I was on the football team at the time, so I had been in the weight room. We were working out and
Yeah.
of that nature. But I don't know. And to this day, I have no idea what it was. I didn't mention it to my mom or whatever. Didn't really go to the doctor about it. But I do think that did create the foundation of establishment for just some other effects down the road.
Uh,
In retrospect, with the knowledge that I have now and everything, I feel like I said, it felt like my hip hop. I really think that it might have displaced a
yeah.
little bit, or maybe I had thin cartilage at the time. It was just tight. Whatever it was, I just remember it was lifting up, using a hip flexor most at the hip. It was always a difficult thing to like. I would move my hip in different ways. I feel like it could have been a hip impingement,
Hmm.
like a pad or something. During that time I did also. I remember we were going to the I'm not gonna quote what we were. I remember starting to see a chiropractor
Mhm.
at the time. I don't have scoliosis or anything, but just it was a period of time where we were there. We would visit a few times, but it wasn't anything that I was bothered. It wasn't for a problem that I felt. It
Right.
was just upon the X-rays, and they were like, "Yeah, you have XXX number of degrees of whatever the term is, back not being straight or
Mhm.
in proper alignment." And then we went to a few sessions from then. But aside from that, I honestly cannot tell you
Huh.
what, how, or why that
Yeah.
happened. Know
Yeah,
that
it's
it did.
interesting because it's true. You were an athlete. It's not like cause that's what I was thinking. Like, oh, maybe this is like the first time, you've done something athletic, like not playground athletic, but like, oh, I'm in
Mhm.
the blocks. But you were playing football. Yeah, that's interesting. It wasn't an odd. Like if you just said it happened over a hurdle, like, okay, that's a fairly unique position you put yourself in versus playing football in the playground. But the blocks, that's a pretty,
Yeah,
that's
out
a
the block,
that's
first
a
step, keeping out.
pretty
Remember,
football thing. Yeah,
and it
that's
just.
interesting.
Mm-mm.
Well, keep us going. That not so great start to the sport of track and
Right,
field, but you obviously stuck with it. I'm glad that happened. Keep us going.
right. So along the time, I felt like I could do track just because in my mind at the time I just felt like I was athletic. I felt like I could do it. Felt like I could jump and other things. And I played DB, so hip mobility was improving during that time. Turns other things. Anyway, seventh grade year completes. Move forward from there, going into my eighth grade year in the spring, still in band. And I remember then the fall, or not the fall, in the spring for football, we would work out at times, but some days we would go out and play, 7-on-7 or two-hand touch football and whatnot, which were some of the greatest days that I
Yeah.
recall because, football was like my first love, and football is still near and dear to my heart and everything. But one day at one of the football practices, I was out there and I ended up spraining my ankle. So, no, I told the story. I ended up breaking my foot that year in spring football. I
Wow.
remember we were doing a drill. We were doing 3-on-3, three linemen, and plus a running back and a linebacker or tackler. Had the ball, ran over toward the left side, and upon being tackled, there were the half dummies,
Hmm.
the half pads were there, and like stepped on one of them, foot got stuck, and kind of rotated around and
Yeah.
popped it. I remember the coach. It's funny. Coach at the time said was trying to tell me to walk it off, but to take a step, and I know. Mm-mm, mm-mm.
It's funny. I knew that's where you're going, and I know coaches, especially football, I guess, and maybe track, but there's this fine line between because you're dealing with, especially in high school, 14, 18-year-old kids, and you're talking about eighth grade even here. There's a fine line between a kid who what they used to say, there's hurt and there's injured, right? And
Mm.
most things are hurt, thank goodness, right? They are most just hurt. There's a fine line between like, man, Jquarious, let's go, just you're fine, get going,
Yeah,
versus like you're injured. I know they weren't trying to do anything malice, but it's like, no, this one's for real. I'm
it's,
hurt.
and I don't do it. And over time, you looking back, I would say I have a pretty high pain tolerance, you know,
Yeah.
but it's few things that have occurred where if it completely stops me, like it might be. There have been plenty of times where I probably should have stopped myself
Right.
sooner than I did, but the times where it's like I have no choice, I physically cannot. That was like the first time.
Yeah.
Well, second time, I hurt my foot once in like the third grade.
Yeah.
I did a backflip off a tree and sprained my
Of
ankle, twisted my
course you
foot.
did.
Yeah.
But
Just childhood things.
this was spring ball. I assume no track that year then.
Ended up being no track because of that.
Right.
So because of my eighth grade year, I broke my foot, so I did not run track that year. But I did still march in the Disney parade because I were in band. We had a trip I've been paying for throughout the year,
Wow.
so it happened in time enough to where we're putting in the money and still gonna go. So I ended up being able to make it out to Disney World in Orlando,
Nice.
and I marched in the parade with a cast on. I had my walking boot,
Wow.
played trombone at the time, and it was like the shortest parade ever. And so I had a whole trip to Disney World. I had a great time. I got a chance to experience a few of the parks. We were there probably 4 or 5 days.
That's cool.
So but yeah, I went there on crutches, and oddly enough, it might sound bad, but at the same time, it's somewhat justified due to the unfortunate circumstance of me breaking my foot. I was on crutches, and so I'm crutching around the park. But eventually, friends, I ended up getting the wheelchair. So I'm going around, but due to this hindrance, I was enabled to get to the front of the line.
Oh, bro, that's huge.
So me
At
and my
Disney
friend,
World, man, that
well,
changes your experience. Yeah.
this is before, well, fast pass type thing was, I think, was beginning to become a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially they just opened up, unhooked the
Huge.
thing, let us straight to the front. So I
That's
got the chance
awesome.
to truly experience the whole park multiple times.
That's awesome, dude. That's fun. That's fun. All right, keep us going into high school. Football is your first love, so I assume you're still playing football. Where's track starting to come
Football,
in?
still playing football, getting better at football. My freshman year, at the end of our ninth grade season, we ended up dressing out for the varsity and whatnot. So football is becoming a much bigger thing. I'm no longer in band, and coming to the spring, I said, okay, I'm gonna do track this year. Well, leading to the spring, now is when we're playing 7-on-7 two-hand touch, and I sprained my foot.
Okay.
And it happened right in like the springtime when track season had been going on, so didn't even really compete. I
Wow.
was like, okay, well, I can't run or dealing with that, doing it or whatever, what have you. I still was with football, doing what I could, but working through that. So ninth grade year, I didn't compete.
Hmm.
Um, Still knew Coach JJ and everything at the time, but he didn't really know me. He knew
Hmm.
more of me, but we hadn't built to where we are today.
Right.
So then leading in my 10th grade year. So now 10th grade year, starting for football as a sophomore, 140-pound safety, but out here laying wood doing what I got to do. Come back in the spring, first year finally doing track. But by the time I got to track, I had, remember that hip thing I mentioned? At this point, I was having groin/lower back issues. Again, that 140-pound frame was kind of light. I'm going
Hmm.
against big
Hmm.
people and all. And body was just, I think, just being twisted or just the handling the forces. There were slight issues from that. Due to that, I was telling coach, I was like, it hurt to run, like it hurt to sprint
Hmm.
somewhat. Like when I was in football, when we were running gassers or conditioning, like it didn't really bother me as much. I think because most of the time we have on football pads, so it kind of restricts your range of motion
Hmm.
degree. And so and didn't really need to, wasn't on the field playing games, so I wasn't opening up my stride per se. But then out
Right.
there with track when I was running, and probably running with improper form, overstriding things of the such. But it bothered me then. So basically, I tried to do what I could without having to do what I felt was sprinting. So I ended up leaning into high jump and pole vault
Hmm. Really? Wow.
because
Interesting.
doing high jump, I always felt like I could jump, and
Hmm.
you know, with high jump, you're not really sprinting, you're not really running, or
Right.
in your mind at the time as it's going on. So was learning with that, trying to figure that out, and then pole vault was new. And everything. There was only a few people that were doing it, and I saw them. I was like, oh, sure, I'll try it because my goal in mind, I lettered in varsity for football at the time, and my goal in mind was I wanted to letter in track.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think I was playing tennis yet. I was also on the tennis team in high school, but I think for
Hmm.
sure my junior, senior year, I know I was on the team. But
Where are you for track and field? I love that you eventually played tennis too. Like I love multi-sport athletes. I think that's definitely the way to go, especially as you're younger. Obviously in college, and essentially obviously, but more in college, you maybe be a single sport athlete, and if you're lucky enough to go to the next level, obviously. But in high school, I just think you should be playing multiple sports for many
right,
reasons, mental as well as physical. But where are you at in track and field mentally wise? And what I mean by that is like, are you a fan? Like, do you? I know football's number one, so you're probably watching every game on Saturday and Sunday and things like that. But like, do you know like who the top kids in the state are? And maybe not because you don't even really have an event. Like you're still like, oh, I'll do high jump and pole vault. It's not like you're like, oh, I'm a sprinter or anything like that. Or do you even know like who the top Team USA track athletes are, or is this just all oblivious to you as a sophomore?
you're so good at what you do, but you do this on a regular, and I know that, and I see that.
Thank you, Junior.
But I would say I was very unaware. I was very in the dark about track. Like I kept up with as far as I knew about, Usain Bolt at the time, 2008,
Yeah.
Olympics, Beijing, and everything. And then you hear some other names in 2012, you know, Tyson Gay. I remember his name at the time and everything, and Justin Gatlin, and
All right.
so like I knew of like sprinters per se, like the
Yeah.
ones that were in the mix. Allison Felix, things of that nature. My mom, she's employed by Nike, so a lot of those athletes I would just know of it, but
Yeah.
I was not a fanatic of the sport to that
Yeah. Yeah.
degree. I was
That's
unaware of who was. I was just oblivious to track
yep.
field.
Yep.
I'll tell you this: my senior year, or it wasn't until my senior year, leading into like my freshman year of college. I remember my senior year, I didn't know that AAU track existed. I didn't
Mm.
even know. that was the thing. I had a teammate
Right.
that was ran for the Memphis Mustangs. She ended up running at my rival school, Ole Miss,
Yeah.
but she I remember that was my first instance of learning about AAU. 'Cause I knew AAU basketball was a thing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never heard of AAU football. I knew football camps and other stuff, but track I didn't know that was a thing. And then my
Yeah.
freshman,
Yes, same, by the way. Now, we grew up in a little different eras as far as high school, but similar locations, right? I'm from small town Alabama. You're from small town Mississippi. But same, I had no clue. Maybe I think I'd probably heard of AAU basketball as well, mostly because of like the whole Adidas, Nike, Jimmy Vaccaro type things, probably. But never knew like a track ended at the state meet. Like
right?
there's nothing
Summer
else. Like,
summer
see you
track
next
was
year. Yeah, yeah, summer track. That's great. That's I was a football guy. That's conditioning for football. That's what summer
right.
is lift weights and condition for football.
Gassers
So
and all, and
yeah. So I love where you're at with track and field because that actually helps paint the picture of where track and field is a little bit. It's like, oh, I'd heard of Bolt and Tyson. And so a couple of guys who had transcended track a little bit, right? But to get to the nitty gritty, like, oh, but I remember Ray Edwards when he ran, or it's like, ah, no, I had no clue
yeah,
who fourth place was. They didn't make commercials and
right.
magazine covers and stuff.
They
So
weren't on the Wheaties box.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so now most of the time when we have guests on here, I don't know their story very well. I do that on purpose, and I definitely usually almost never know like where they went to college and stuff like that and what they did. But I do know with you, so I'm interested. We're still very football focused. Usually I ask the question of our guest who played football and ran track, like, "Hey, did you consider yourself a football player who ran track or a track athlete who ran football?" I don't even have to ask you. You were definitely a football player in high school who, okay, I ran track, at least at this point, and then tennis and things like that. So I don't even have to ask you that. So I'm super curious how we get to where it becomes track focused. Keep us going through high school here. This is sophomore year. We become a high jumper and pole vaulter, which plays into our future coming up for you guys and gals that don't know his story here. So you do that a little bit. I love that. And by the way, quick caveat: we've kind of just glossed over it, and we can't gloss over. You mentioned Coach JJ Downs, good friend of both of ours. Was a big part of your life, is a big part of my life, and it was an OG here on the podcast. I think he's like episode number like maybe 20 something, 40 something. Like we're on 340 something now. So he is a OG in the podcast. Love JJ to death because I know you're listening, JJ. I just know you, brother. You're listening. I'll tell you a fun fact, Jaquarious, because you'll appreciate this. So back in the day, I used to run the podcast through this program called Headliner, and it would create like these little graphics to put on like Twitter and stuff like that, right? And it would take the a clip and it would put it in text for you, right? So it's hi, my name is Jaquarius. That would pop up in text, right? It couldn't figure out what JJ was saying. It never could give yeah, yeah, yeah. His accent,
Auto text, speech to text generation.
his accent is so Mississippian. It couldn't. I had to manually go in.
Go in and type it all up, had to transcribe it word for word, bar for bar.
I thought that I told him about that. I was like, I think that is. Hopefully, technology has gotten better. That was 5-ish years ago, but oh my god, I knew you'd get a kick out of this since you know
Yes,
JJ so well.
yeah,
But love JJ to death. Obviously, plays a
absolutely.
lot into your story, and consider him a dear friend. Love him to death. Okay, so keep us going because I'm still hearing football and track is a tertiary sport for crying out loud. Keep us going through high school here.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say I would call myself a football player that ran track because to me, or the way that I thought, I felt like I was just an athlete. Like I could
Hmm,
do whatever. I
hmm,
could do anything.
okay.
The only thing for me at that time was trying to gain weight, gain size for football because it just wasn't happening the way I wanted it to happen. Looking back, obviously retrospect, if I could be me to like look younger me, I'm like, look, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, get you right. But aside from that, moving on, so sophomore year, I'm doing high jump and pole vault because I'm thinking I'm not having to sprint to compete in these events. And at the time, in order to letter,
Then you want a letter?
or
Yep. Hmm.
all I had to do was go to our district meet, which was super easy.
Hmm.
You get past district, it was just top four in Mississippi. Move on to the next one, and I did not make it in high jump, but I made it in pole vault because obviously it's not many people pole vaulting already, even in
Okay.
today's term, especially in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah,
Good point.
and the state of Mississippi is, if you are unaware, for any listeners out there, um, I feel in comparison to larger states, the state of Mississippi does not put a large focus on track and field. There is no indoor track and field program. There's not many indoor places that is focused on, as well as it's not very many schools. Now it is growing, as now I want to let it be known, but as far as other states and the way that they focus on track in high school, I would say Mississippi is behind in comparison on what they focus on. It's the South. It's the Mississippi. It's a
I,
football.
I think again, a little bit different era, but I've seen the era go through. Mississippi today is a lot like Alabama back in my day, where we had no real indoor season. We did have a leg up on Mississippi today. We did have a horse barn that we had this old 160-meter track, so we did have an unofficial state meet and all this kind of stuff. But it was football focused, not track. And so you had, about 5 schools in the state where they had like bona
Really big.
fide track coaches that like focused on track. And those are the ones that always won the state meets, right? I mean, it's kind of obvious. Mississippi is like that, right? I mean, there are pockets where, Clinton, Tupelo, I'm missing one obvious one,
Earl,
yeah, yeah, that have track coaches that they focus on track, and so they do really well year after year, things like that. And then Alabama kept developing. Obviously the crossplex was huge for the
big.
state, right? That's
Mhm.
what Mississippi needs. Mississippi needs some kind of, like in Jackson or something, some kind of public facility that has a track. And I think because the athletes are there, there's no question that the athletes are there. The coaches are there. The coaching education continues to get better in there. That blossoms it up if you add a facility that, oh, okay, there's some kind of state meet series for indoor, etc. But the bottom line, the athletes are there. You know that better than anybody there. So it has the potential to get a lot better, and I think it will get better. Whether
Mhm.
it's 2035 or 2045, we'll see. We all go at our different paces, I guess, but we'll
Right.
see. We'll see. Okay, keep going. Sorry, I interrupt you there. Just
Oh,
remind me a
so
lot of old school Alabama.
you're fine. You're fine. I do want to add in case you want to add notes to talk about for later. 3 things that I just came to mind that I have had thoughts on. One of which I've always wondered or had considerations of starting my own a summer youth club
Hmm.
or something of that nature. And I think that just developing athletes, being able to say that I did something like that. But I think in the state of Mississippi, especially since I'm back and it's my home state and I've been well traveled and whatnot, I think that would be good for development. If I'm ever in position one day to be able to give back and create a facility as such, I think that would be a great thing for the state and just for the development along with the crossplex, because the crossplex is what the crossplex is, large area that it covers, but this is a lot that it has to do. I think the youth sport would be good, the crossplex, and I just had this thought last week. I was telling my head coach, I was like, "That's I don't think would be a bad idea. I think maybe doing creating some sort of track and field coaches clinic,
Hmm.
being in Mississippi Valley State, maybe having it here while I'm here, or developing that, or creating something like that to educate high
Hmm.
school coaches in Mississippi about track and field. Like, yeah, the things exist and stuff, but I think I'm big on pretty good building relationships, getting the word out, and doing it. And I had thought, and it's very new, and it come to mind, but I think that would be something that
I think those are great, and bless all three of those things. They're to me. This is just my opinion, my experience, right? Being 10 years as a coach, and now nearly 20 years on this side of things here at Gill Athletics. Those three things. If I were to put those in priority, again, outside looking in, I'd put the clinic as your top priority because
mhm,
better educated coaches make better educated decisions, right? Plus, you can affect more kids that way. Like when I first, a little bit about my story. I coached for 10 years. My last place was at Mississippi State. When I first got to Gill, like I had a little bit of a hard time. Like, how am I really affecting our sport? I don't coach kids anymore. Like, I'm not affecting Jaquariuses of the world, right? And then somewhere, 2, 3 years, 4 years down the road, I realized, like, holy crap, wait a minute. When I affect Coach Wilson positively, he coaches 30 kids. Well, so every one coach that I affect, they affect way more. I have more of a positive effect on athletes today than I ever did as a coach, and that's crazy to say, right? So better educated coaches, I think, make better educated decisions. The second one would be the track club, actually, and this is going to sound crazy because I'm the equipment guy, right? So you think like facility would be number one, but I'll get to why here in a second. Number two is the track club. What I worry about track clubs is uh, sometimes people, and this is not you necessarily, but sometimes I think people get into it because of the money aspect, and I have no problems with that. I want you to be paid more. I want all of our track coaches, so that's not a concern. But are you doing it for the kids or are you doing it for the money? That's a little bit different. You can still make a lot of money and be doing it for the kids, and I just worry about I don't know. I see some of these. young youth events where 8-year-olds and stuff are doing all this stuff, and I'm like, man, I just don't know. Should you be doing that? Maybe you should be like going and playing, or maybe playing football or playing tennis, or So I worry a little bit about that. Now, number three is the facility, and again, that sounds crazy because I'm the Gill guy. I should be saying that's number one, right? But you can still, and you've seen this, you can still positively impact young people, whether it's high school, college, etc., without a facility. You can. I want you to have a facility, selfishly and unselfishly. Selfishly, I want you to facility because then you're going to need hurdles, pits, all that kind of stuff. That's how I make my livelihood, right? Unselfishly, I just like for you to walk in and have a track, have a home, just like a football field or a baseball field, etc. Right? But you can. I mean, we've had guests here on the podcast that have state championship winning teams, amazing experience for their kids, and they have no facilities, zero. Not an outdoor, but no indoor, none, zero, and they still make it happen. So when you're looking at how do I affect the sport, I think coaching education continues to be at the forefront. We still have, even in today in 2025, when I can go on YouTube, I can go on Twitter, I can go on this podcast, and I can learn a crap ton easily for free how to coach high jump, decathlon, distance, etc. It's still a lot of coaches out there that are not availing themselves to that, and I think that's where we hurt the sport the most, and we can advance it the most is through education, coaching education. So, okay, now I'm off my soapbox. See, you put me on my soapbox, Jaquarious. Just got to get up there and my coaching.
I like to listen to people speak. I like to hear other
I know
perspectives.
you're so good at it too. That's like you should have your own podcast. You're so good at that stuff. I've known you for a while on that side. You're so good at that, and that's where I find myself in a trap. I'm like, wait a minute, this is my show. I ask the questions. You get to answer them. All right. Where were we? We're in junior year? Are we
So
junior year?
yeah, we were
Okay.
finishing up sophomore year. Speaking on it, also I was asked to co-host a podcast before, so
I
I
knew it.
get I grew in that, and we can talk about that later on about along the journey before prior to coaching, how that affected me.
Yep.
But
Now,
but
let's
yeah,
keep
so
going. Let's keep moving towards that. Yep.
sophomore year, I finished up with that. I ended up going to state, moving forwards with it, but I remember I made it past district, so I lettered. I went to the next meet. All that I had to do was clear a bar, and I'm moving on to the next one. What did I do? I did not clear a bar.
No.
I did not clear a bar. Bar's probably 8 feet, 9 feet. I think at the time I was jumped. My PR was like 9 foot, 9'6". I think. So that didn't happen. I remember afterwards, I was so distraught and mad and angry. What do the kids say these days? I went home and I crashed out.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I like that because that means it was important to you,
mm-hmm,
or at least the idea of success versus a failure meant something
mm-hmm.
to you. That's cool. I like that. I'd much rather that instead of you're like, it sucked, but I moved on. It's like, well, man, wasn't that important to you?
No,
That's important.
I'm, when the competitiveness comes, it's there, and I knew that what I didn't do, I was capable of doing, because not only because I had done it before, but I could do it, but I didn't do it at the time when it was meant to show up. This was after my sophomore, or this is also my sophomore year, so I remember we lost in a football game in the playoffs. And I remember thinking like, this ain't happened to me. No, 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 no. It's like putting in the work and other stuff. So the drive was, the motivation was growing and the discipline. And, shout out to Center Hill for the coaches that we had and everything. And with it being a new school and program for what they did, the mantra of success and accountability, I think were really instilled kind of like how I am and a lot of things going on. Because, I used to see all the time every day walking the football locker room, play, act, and live like champions. My head coach at the time were like, I'm a big quotes guy. You don't talk about some quotes, I can spit them out, but some ones I remember from then was, like suffer through the discipline or suffer through the disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Football, joking when my coach used to say, you got to be a knee bender. He said in his southern country accent, but it was just like getting into the squat, not just like halfway doing it, but like, prior to being set before the ball snap,
Yeah.
being in an athletic position and just the way we were poured into, and we honestly had a really high level of success to be such a new school, and with the way that the school came together and developed and everything, and the standards that were set and how it had gotten to it at that point. So finishing up my sophomore year, that was it for track. So like you said, as soon as they were done, boom, it's over. I'm back to football. I'm running gassers. We out here
Right.
early morning workouts, 7-on-7 camps, go throughout the junior year, have a good season, come back. And my junior year, I remember I used to ask Coach JJ about letting me long jump. 'Cause I felt like I didn't have to sprint. I felt like I could jump, but he
Right.
wouldn't let me do it. And plus, with the running thing, blah blah blah. But anyway, my junior year, he finally at some point let me long jump. I want to say my first time jumping it was like 18, 19 feet. The next meet was like 20 and like 21. And then it started progressing because during my junior year, this is why then I wasn't hurt either. I wasn't feeling those, that hip or groin pain or anything, or at least not as much, you know. So by then, now I'm high jump. I went from 5'6" that year. The next year, I went to 6'6".
Wow.
I remember my with pole vault. The next year, I ended up jumping like 11 feet. Went from 9 feet to 11. Long jump. When ended up going to state for Mississippi, which wasn't a difficult task, but it was like the concept, like wow, like my first
Yeah.
year doing long jump, going to state, and I ended up finishing third in the state. I jumped 21.6. I remember it was crazy because during that competition at Pearl, I jumped it some point in come before the end. But I remember the by the time the sixth round came around, I was leading, and I was like, oh, like this might almost happen. Like I win state, but I knew after I did my last jump, I think that was might have been the furthest I jumped at the time. And I know some people probably listen like that's it, 21.6 or whatever it was, but I jumped 21.6 at that time, and then next guy came up. It was two more guys. I was third to last. Next guy after me, boom, 21.7. Next guy after me, boom, 21.8. So I ended up
Oh
third.
no. Wait. They didn't even crush you. They just one-inched you.
Yeah, each of them, literally both of them just came through in the clutch. Like,
Oh man.
but
Good
couldn't do
for
it.
them. Yeah.
Good for them, happy for it. But I sure it was like just the feeling. But I was like, dang, like, for me then,
You're like, second's not that bad. Boom. All right, well, I guess third, damn it.
yeah, right, exactly. So but it was definitely um, I guess being cliche on it, I could say it was a turning point
Yeah.
because I realized that it was possible. Or like the first year that I was doing long jump, I made it to state in
Mhm.
Mississippi again. Not taken away from that, but for me at that time and everything, it was I just felt like I could jump, felt like I could do those things.
You got to quit apologizing for that. So here's what again, I sit at a very unique seat, right? So I talk to kids from Wyoming to Florida, Texas, all the way through. And, especially as track coaches or college track coaches, because both actually, but I was thinking for our college track coaches, because we recruit a lot. So we're always looking at list, right? So we're always seeing the number one kid in the nation in high school is jumping 26 or whatever. And then it goes all the way down to 19 for a boy, even, right? Depending on how far you go down the list. And so we like to apologize a lot because we're always comparing ourselves. And remember, you like quotes, right? So I know you've heard the quote, comparison
Comparison
is the
is
thief of joy. You know it, right? And yet we get sucked into this trap, just like you're doing right here and you've done for your whole life of like, yeah, I know some people are saying 21 feet. Do you know how many people didn't jump 21 feet? Do you know how many
Mhm.
people didn't even have the guts to try to go long jump in track and field or even do track and field, or maybe even worse, didn't have the opportunity? A coach didn't let them, or hey, we don't do long jump here because we don't have a facility, whatever, many excuses that can be out there, right? So
Right.
you got to stop the comparison. And even with like, oh, I qualified for state in Mississippi, but it's Mississippi, it's not Texas. You didn't, as a 16, 17-year-old
I
kid,
know
you
that.
had no nothing to do with that. You didn't choose who moves to Mississippi. You didn't choose what kind of coaching there is in Mississippi. You didn't choose what kids ran track and just stayed versus stayed with football. All you could do is what was in front of you, and you had 100 plus kids in the state of Mississippi, and at the state meet, 12 kids or whatever the number is. Like that's all you had in front of you, and you went out and got third. Bravo,
Thank you.
honestly. Honestly, we have to, and this is, no, I'm talking to Jay here about this, but this is everybody that's listening. We have to cut that crap out because first of all, so
Mhm.
he's doing it as himself, right? He's cutting himself down a little bit here by saying, well, it was Mississippi, oh, it's only 20 feet, but we do that a lot with others. All we're doing is disrespecting the others. That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing, which is ridiculous. That's just absolutely ridiculous. You had the gumption to go out and do it, and you can only do as well as you had in front of you. Bravo, there it is. Move on. So, all right, another soapbox moment there, but cut
No,
that
you're
crap out,
fine.
Jquarious. Cut that out.
I appreciate it,
Too
Coach.
great of a
I needed that.
person. You're too great of a person to belittle what you did. What you did was extraordinary. It really was. It was awesome. Did you jump
Well, thank you.
25? No. Who cares? You know how many people do, by the way? This me. Nobody jumps 25. Hardly anybody. Let's get real here. This stuff is hard. You know it. You did it and you're coaching it. It's hard to jump 25, 26, 20.
Hmm.
Let's not take away what they're doing either, by the way. Somebody who's
Indeed.
jumping 28 feet, God bless you. You're in a fraternity of like five people or what, or 50, whatever. It's super small out of the billions in this world. All right, keep us going. You get third at state in the long jump. So this,
Woo.
I like your, the cliche of turning point, but like it becomes like oh, wait a minute. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm pretty good at this.
Yep.
All right,
So
give
it
us.
was exactly that, and I do want to acknowledge. I appreciate it, Coach. I received it because you're not wrong. If I heard someone saying that, I would do that same thing. But everyone coaches got to coach. Who's coaching the coaches?
That is yeah, that's part of my role exactly. But that is exactly right. Is you would not do that to someone else, but we allow the voices in our head to talk worse to ourselves than we would accept someone else talking to us, and we wouldn't do it, but we allow because it's in our head. Cut the crap out. Talk better to yourself than anybody does. That's what you deserve.
Mhm.
That's self care. That's self esteem. That's self love. There. So yeah,
Indeed.
good. I
Just
appreciate
like
that.
the healing era I was in. So
That's right. That's exactly
yeah.
right.
So we're so at this point, I'm very happy and proud because that year I think we made the playoffs and went a little bit further for football prior to that, and then for that to happen and all. So I'm feeling like feeling
Things
a
are
lot
going
better
well.
about it.
Yeah.
Things are going well. I was a 4.0 student.
I was just about to ask you, I think of band and tennis and sports. Usually these are better. You're doing good academically as well.
Doing
Good.
well
Love
academically.
it.
There were,
Mhm.
all A's with everything throughout the year. I did have two B's a couple of times.
Yeah.
Um, but generally, I graduated with a like 4.1 GPA, 396 unweighted, and I think on the
Dude,
ACT, I had a 30 on the English part, so I was in our ACT 30 plus club.
did you
Got my name on the
really?
wall and everything. Yeah, but aside from that, I had a 24
Oh,
composite, so it was
yeah.
26 in math, 24 in English and reading, and even on like the ASVAB, I think I scored 86. The
Yeah.
military was trying to
Sure.
get knocking at my door very
Yeah,
heavily.
I can see why. Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so I was just excelling in sports as well as academically. The
Mhm.
teachers and all were supporting me and all everything. So again, just overall good
Yeah.
things in that nature. But in my mind, at this time, so, I'm leading into my senior year. Just looking to work hard, looking to try to keep that success up across the board with the sports. Junior year was on the tennis team as well, so I feel like an overall athlete. Like
Yeah.
football player, play tennis, and I'm in track. Like what we talking about? I'm
Hmm.
an athlete. I can do this. I do that. And I remember, we're getting closer to time for college and stuff. And at the time, this is for me, 2011, 2012. You hear those statistics. Oh, less than 1% of all, less than 2% of all high school athletes go on to play Division I sports or college sports, things of that. And I'm hearing it, and for the latter, just for understanding explanation. Yes, at the time, I did feel I wasn't very confident. Well, I was confident, but I was very comparative
Mhm.
uh, beginning like looking across just from because I knew where I was. I feel like I was very aware of my strengths and weaknesses and knew where I can
Mhm.
improve on what I feel like I can do,
So,
but
so
also
you,
just
you didn't have like this outstretched because you're obviously an athlete. You're probably one of the better athletes in the school.
mhm.
I worry about that sometimes because we see it sometimes not as often as people like to think. But it doesn't sound like you had like this outstretched like, oh, I'm a D1 kid. Come on, man, I'm starting the football. I'm a
Yeah,
third state. You didn't have that, or
I was not overzealous in
wow,
that nature, but
that's
that
some
was part.
humbleness. That's
That's,
humbleness.
that's what I'm getting at because there was that back and forth from like can I and it's funny you say it because that's exactly what I was going to get to. Because so as far as recruitment, I'm starting to be contacted or looked at by a few smaller schools, football
Hmm.
and everything. I remember even at the time, I remember taking a visit to Delta State,
Hmm.
ironically for football. And this at the
Yeah,
time,
that's funny.
I think they were coming off of a junior college national championship
Hmm.
and everything. And I was recruited there. Full scholarship was offered and all, but at the time, because I just made the state and long jump and everything, and I was seeing myself. I was like, okay, and I'm just gonna be honest. Where I am now mentally, how I see it and think of, I think totally differently. I've
Hmm.
coached at multiple levels, but at the time, what I thought in my mind was I wanted to be quote unquote a Division I athlete.
Hmm.
Now, me
Hmm.
saying that, I feel like I personally held myself back in ways. I'll talk about that later from my full extent of what I feel like I could have accomplished, as well as um, me thinking that or seeing it that way. I just wasn't, not that I wasn't sure that I could do it, but hold on, my computer is opening up other apps. It was me thinking of it and that, oh, I know, because of the location, and this is me retrospectively speaking and looking at why was it like that.
Right.
Because of being where I was, being in Olive Branch, Mississippi at the time. I grew up in Memphis before moving there. The schools that I knew about and knew of was, like Mississippi State, Ole Miss, University of Memphis, and like SEC schools around. And I knew of like Christian Brothers and or like Lemoyne Owen schools in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Do you mind? I think that's like your email. Do you mind closing that down or something?
yeah,
Just
like I
yeah.
said, it's
Hopefully, if closing it down while you're doing this, that'll take away some of that noise. I
it
mean,
took away.
you're very famous. You're getting blown up. I know. Everybody wants to come run for you at Mississippi Valley State. They can pause for the next hour or so.
Right. Yeah, it started trying to do an update on its own.
Oh yeah. Hey, I've had that. I've had that in the middle of an interview. The computer just shuts down, starts doing a reboot, update. And I'm like, dude,
Right.
of all
And
timing, yeah,
that's why I was like trying
all
to
good.
stop. But anyway, so yeah, so the area that I was in and what I knew, or like the schools people talk about, the schools they would visit, what I was looking at, all that I saw or all that you knew of in that area was everyone talking about going D1. Everyone
Hmm.
talking about going, you going to what SEC schools were you going to and stuff. I didn't know Division 2
Right.
was, or I kind of looked down upon it at the time,
Hmm.
honestly. Just I didn't see it at the same level, and not that it's a bad perspective to look at things as a top level per
Hmm.
se, since Division 1 is seen as such.
Right.
But now I know Division 2, Division 3 all can have very
Yeah.
high levels of athletic prowess. But at the time, that's all that I knew of and thought of schools I was applying to. I knew that, and I was never worried about the getting into a school
Oh, right.
unless it was like an Ivy League school or something. But aside from that, I knew that I had the grades, so it made it. I was indecisive, made it harder to look to see what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, how it was,
Right.
because I knew I had options for football. And I'm tying it back together, tying it back together.
Well, yeah, so you've got a lot of decisions to make here, right? Not only as far as where we go and things like that, but what sport to do, or
Mm-hmm.
what sports to do, or to do sports at all. I mean, you're a high academic kid, so if you'd have said, I really wanted to study engineering, so I went to Georgia Tech and didn't play any sport, that would not surprise me in this story up to this point. So how are you? So I love how you're kind of you're giving us the kind of the behind the scenes of your thought processes. So please
Mm-hmm.
keep going. I love it. This is great.
Yes. So with that, I'm thinking about I knew I can get into school, but I didn't know what I wanted to major in particularly. But also the way I felt about it was I knew that whatever school I went to, they would have something available that I could lean towards. So I wasn't worried about if a school did or didn't have my major. I
Mhm.
had the grades to get in. So it's good problems that I often have.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I was just saying, not
You
bad
know,
problems here.
even alluding to what I did, what I went on to do
Mhm.
track later on, as you alluded to it, because
Mhm.
it wasn't just one thing
Right.
that I was like particularly good at. There was a few things I stood out in, but I could have played football collegiately. I obviously ended up running track collegiately, but I also could have played tennis collegiate. I probably would have been more on a community college level, but
Were you that? So you're solid at tennis then?
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
what's crazy is I honestly had the most confidence in tennis at the time
Really?
because I really knew kind of where my level was. Like my favorite tennis player is Novak Djokovic. So I
Oh,
even kept.
tennis. Like
Yes,
this wasn't some like, oh, I'm just going to go get another varsity later. Like you
yeah,
were.
I tell people all the time. I keep my rackets in the trunk. Like I'm always ready.
Shut
You
up! I
know,
had no idea. Really?
tennis, and then well, along the lines, I like to play ping pong as well. And,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
lately, I've been getting into pickleball since that's been a thing. But I see it's a good combination of both.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
I'm for all that.
That's fast.
Yeah.
I had no clue. I thought, sometimes your own background colors we all have prejudices, good or bad.
Right.
And so I did, somewhere in middle school, I went to a tennis camp and was just good enough to be like the best kid in my like they categorize, like low, middle, good. I was in the low. I was the best of the low. That's as good as I got, right? And so senior year, or not senior year, high school, I tried to play tennis, but with track and football, I couldn't figure out timing, so I didn't do it. So tennis was always like this, like, oh, I was never very good, but it was okay to play. I didn't necessarily like to play either, by the way. So I'm sitting there thinking like, oh, you went to the tennis team because you're like, oh, I get a letter, maybe my boys were out there too, whatever. No, this was a
Oh, this was
sport for you.
and me and so for tennis,
Fascinating.
I kind of started the wave, and I had some friends of mine that were on the football team because I was like, let's go play tennis, blah blah blah, like on at the parks. Eventually, they came along and got on tennis team. 'Cause our English teacher at the time, Mr. Jones, was a tennis coach, and I told her I was gonna play, and we were all in her accelerated English class, and I got some of them to come out. So we were amongst some of the starters on the football team, big dudes, but also I was on the tennis team. But also they ran track as well. So keep in mind, tennis and track in high school in the same season.
Right.
So, and you can tell JJ could tell you there was one story, one defining moment in time where I you have those learning moments where you do something wrong and you don't let it happen again. Because boy, let me tell you, he ripped me a new one time because I told him like the day before, getting the scheduling was done, and I was wrong in this, but I told and I tried to communicate. I did pretty well for the most part, but I wasn't sure how to handle it, what to do, and I ended up telling him the day before a track meet, like a 2-day meet, that because we had a tennis match that I was needing to go to, and I knew the track meet wasn't a district meet, and I don't know, something about the tennis meet for why I had to go to that.
Right.
But anyway, it was like that week, or as we were leaning on the day before, because sometimes I would go to track practice and leave track and go to tennis, or sometimes I'd be at tennis practice instead of track. Told him the day before. I remember we were in the hallway, and it was like right before the meeting, and he chewed
Yeah,
my
didn't like
mouth.
that.
Ooh, I still remember in there. Like, and normally he never does it. I
Right.
generally did everything was needed. I'm talking about a whole new one in front of everybody, just there. And either way, I still had to go to the tennis thing, and I'll tell you why he was so mad about it, because again, I did long jump, triple jump, pole vault, high jump, or
Right.
whatever. Well, all the jumps, the main jumps I was doing, the meet was split into field events and sprints. So the field events day, I wasn't going to be it. So that was a lot of points, but potentially be missing out on.
Right.
And you know what he made me do? He made me come to. I came to the meet the next day, and he put me on the 4x4. Keep in mind, at this time, I never ran a 4x4.
Oh.
So very first 4x4, I remember it was at DeSoto Central. So I remember the meet going. I get the baton, I get the running. We're like in third, and the whole. So I show up to the meet early all day. Don't do nothing else but to run 4x4, because that was my
Oh.
punishment, so to speak, or he's gonna do. Also, where I messed up,
JJ. I'm disappointed in you, JJ. This don't sound right. Keep going, man.
it wasn't really a punishment, but
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
to do something. But anyway, I'm on the 4x4, and so I get the baton. I'm last leg, and I'm running. We're like in third, I think, or second. I don't know. We were second, I think. Yeah, I think we got the baton. I think I was in second. Anyway, I get the baton, so I'm running. So I'm getting out. I'm running. Right, I'm running. Not really knowing what to expect, just knowing I'm more so nervous about just being in front of people and looking to. My thing was always not getting hawked, or in football, not nervous
Sure.
about getting.
Yeah.
So I'm running. By the time I'm like 110, 120 meters in, I hear it, move in, move in. I was running lane 2 the whole time. So
Of
I
course you
realized
were.
it. So you move in lane 1, and I'm running. I get around, and I get to the home stretch, and I'm the wall smacking last 100 meters and fighting for my life. I'm trying to get down. I remember somebody came down, a guy from, I want to say the South Central or some other school. Somebody came and got me, like, ended up at the end, but we ended up finishing third. But everybody was hyped, team was hyped. They didn't know that I could run like that or do that or anything. And then afterwards, Coach JJ told me I was on 4x4 for the rest of the year.
Congrats, you're on it forever. Yeah.
So in high school, that's what I did. I would always start the meet and finish the meet, because high jump
Yeah.
was on first. I do high jump, then go do long jump, then triple jump. In our home meets, I can do pole vault and stuff, but at the district meets, I do long jump or high jump, long jump, triple jump,
Yeah.
and the 4x4.
Wow, man.
And then my senior year, go ahead.
No, well, I was just gonna say because I want to move forward because we got to get to coaching somewhere.
Oh yeah, gotta
This
get
is a
coached.
coaching podcast, right?
Indeed.
So how did you make a decision, and what were the deciding factors for the decision that you made?
Well, talking with me mentioning that Division 1 thing, I wanted that title per
Hmm.
se.
Hmm.
I didn't know anything about the other schools' divisions, and Coach JJ was the one that mentioned to me about the decathlon.
Hmm.
And so I
Did you have
looked it
any
up.
clue? Yeah, yeah. Okay, I was about to say any clue, right? None, none.
Didn't know what it was. He
Right.
told me he felt like I could be do decathlon in college. So I looked it up what the decathlon was, and all I saw was, the winner of decathlon is the world's greatest athlete and
Oh, you're
everything.
in.
I wouldn't say I'm in. I did see
Okay.
everything too, but,
World
but
greatest athlete. Oh wait, and I got to run a mile. Wait,
but
I'm
everything
conflicted.
else, yeah, everything else I generally was like fairly open to. I didn't care for the 400, but I
Sure.
was open to doing that and everything. So we get into that. And what happens is, because of his Mississippi State connections, I believe, and I let him know I wanted to compete at Division 1 level. Because by the time my senior year come around, I'm in track season, but I hadn't committed anywhere for football.
Right.
So at this point, I'm pretty much rolling the dice. I'm gambling on my
Mhm.
athletic collegiate career. But I ended up having a visit to Mississippi State. Enjoyed the visit, loved the campus, fell in love with the feel of it, because it did honestly feel like home.
Yeah.
And once there, Coach Dudley, Steve Dudley was the head coach at the time, and they offered me small scholarship to be on the team, and I was sold from that because it gave me the
Wow.
opportunity to be a Division I athlete.
Yeah.
So
I grew up in Alabama, so everybody asks, what'd you grow up as, Alabama or Auburn, those kind of things. You grew up in Mississippi. It's a very common, similar culture. You grew up Ole Miss or Mississippi State. What did you grow up as?
I didn't grow up as any particular fan, although my mom is also a Mississippi State alum, and
Oh,
so
okay.
her sister, my aunt. So both of them went to Mississippi State. But oh, and my biological father also ran track in Mississippi State.
Wow. But you
But I
did,
did not want to go there off the strength of them going there. If
sure.
wherever I went, I knew I wanted to make it my decision, but the opportunity that was presented itself in such a way that it allowed me to feel comfortable with going
Right.
there, unrelated to
Yeah.
them, unbeknownst to them, because my biological father wasn't around throughout
Right.
my life growing up
Right.
and everything. But it was just so ironic how I ended up at
Yeah.
Mississippi anyway.
Yeah. It's cool that you got there independently, though, of that. I,
Mhm.
I I think that's
That was a
stronger
big
in,
thing
in
for
that
me.
a
Like,
bit. Yeah.
if it wasn't for that, would not have wanted to go there.
Right. Yeah, good point. Good point. So you go to Mississippi State, a school that I am quite familiar with. I coached there for a couple of years. Got to work with, he's got to be, oof. Actually, I don't know because of the kid that just happened this year. I was going to say still the school record holder, and I don't know if that's true. Trey Hardy, when I was there back in the day, which Trey is a very similar, similar. There's some differences with you and him. Of like he was no decathlete out of high school. He was a pole vaulter. He was a pretty good pole vaulter
Mhm.
and a pretty good hurdler as well. And saw potential in him to become a decathlete, and ended up that was a pretty good decision. What about you? So lump all of college together in this next
Gotcha.
section here. Uh, how did you develop as a decathlete? Because decathletes are always interesting to me. It's one of those events. It's one of those events that I'm concerned with in regards to our roster caps and stuff that we
Mhm.
have, moving forward in Division One. But it's a developmental event. Very rarely do we
Mhm.
get a kid right out of high school, especially here in America, that is like, oh, okay, they know all the events. I just got to keep getting them better. Much like if I recruit a high jumper, they know the event of high jump. I just got to make them a better high jumper. That's rare in decathlon. Decathlon, they usually come with one or two events that maybe they're pretty solid in. They maybe have never touched the throws,
Mhm.
maybe have never touched the mile, things like that. And you got to do a lot of teaching. How was your experience of, you showed prowess, obviously doing a lot of different events and things like that, but that's not decathlon. How did you handle all the development and learning new events? And I assume there's got to be some frustrations with those learning new events too.
Well, I would say I handled it pretty well. Going into it, I was open to whatever. I'm just appreciative for the opportunity to even compete at Division I level or in college in general. Especially because I remember kept saying like, man, like I got through all the high school workouts and stuff. I never threw up. Man, I'm about to be on an SEC team. Like I know I'm about to throw up. Also, never threw up from any workouts. Took care of my body well enough. I finished every decathlon I competed in as well.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah,
but
that's a deal. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, I was just open to learning. Like, I like the idea that, I feel like an athlete, like, yeah, I can get over here and sprint. Oh yeah, I can go over there and throw. Like throws don't have conversation, I can understand it. I'm in the mix. You want to talk about distance running, some long runs or interval training, steady states, this and that, and the third, I'm here for that. So I feel like the development of that was great. I think it was just
Any intimidation, and what I mean by that is, you've got kids on your team. You've got to do the 100-meter dash in the decathlon, and you've got kids on your team that run 10:30, 10:20, 10:10, etc. You need to run the 400-meter dash. You've got kids on your team that run 45 seconds. You have to do hurdles. You have to do good hurdlers on your team. You have to throw the javelin. Get some pretty good javelin throw. Like any intimidation of like, oh, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be on the same team as these dudes.
you getting kind of deep with this question. Honestly, if I'm being honest, yes, because keep in mind how I'm thinking to myself already as I get there. Remember what I mentioned when I got to college, my freshman year. I'm talking to some of my teammates. They were like, "Yeah, I went to JOs. They said JOs. What's that?
You're like, wait, what is that?
Junior Olympics. That's a thing."
Yeah.
I'm shook. I'm new to all this. I didn't
Right,
know. Didn't
right.
know who anybody else was except for like people I was competing with. But I began to learn and grow over time. And shout out to my teammates. They nobody really like put me down or anything. I let them know what
Good.
I did. They some of the ones that were there knew. I feel like collegiately, once you start getting people on a collegiate track team, especially those that are or have know somewhat about it, the decathlon or the multis, they can appreciate how much intensity goes into training, because some people are like, man, you got like they'll go sprint, but they won't run 1500.
Right.
Or some people run 1500, but they won't go sprint. Some people don't want to do no running at all. Throwers, jumpers, like I'm not doing all that.
Right.
So
Yep.
they can. There's appreciation for the variance in training that's going along, and they would see. I wouldn't run workouts at the same times as some of them. Although there still was a standard. The standard was high. I'm trying to keep there, and I'm trying to get it. But they knew, and I knew for myself individually. But I put in a lot of work and a lot of effort, and I truly feel like I put in the best efforts that I could just to become the best that I could in
Yeah.
that. So a lot of times, my freshman year coming in, there was a group of us. There hadn't been any multis prior to that. And over the years, it dwindled down to where some of my junior year into my senior year, I pretty much was the only decathlete, or the only like true decathlete
Yeah.
on the team. Keep in mind, I also had Erica Bogart as a teammate as well.
Oh yeah.
Very high level heptathlete
Hmm.
and all, but a heptathlete is not decathlete. She didn't
Right.
have to pole vault.
Right.
So
It's a
doing
different
all
event.
this. So just development over time was just going in and learning, like getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That was one thing.
Hmm.
A huge thing in track and field and everything.
Right.
You got to know with that. One thing my coach Steve Thomas used to always say, he always had one thing he would say. He always had more respect for the person that fails valiantly than for the person that doesn't try at all. To the point you made,
Amen. Right. Yep. Exactly.
and as well as, like, there's another quote, like, only those who have the patience to do simple things perfectly will acquire the skill to do difficult things easily.
Mm.
So focusing on, like, small details, little things, if you can perfect that or improve on that and everything, it's
Right.
going to make what's harder, easier to accomplish, so to
Right.
speak.
Right. Right.
And just affirmations and other things, even how we're doing stuff. It's a book that I've got right here. I had my sophomore year, where I really got into it, and it's just a bunch of quotes on there and everything. Got to be competitive. I kept up with training. I kept up with my numbers.
Wow,
And,
dude.
and I reference back, and I'll use things, for different education, looking at it. Kept up with, like, when I was going to sleep, what I was eating, what was the
Wow.
quality of my sleep, and things like that. So, truly tried to become a student of
Yeah.
sport, because again, I was new to this. They all knew, so I didn't. I'm playing catch up.
Yeah. You thought they all knew. They didn't, by the way, and you know that. Some did. Some
They knew
yeah,
more than I
had a
did.
little understanding. Sure, maybe. That's right. Yeah, 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 yeah. What tie the academic side. So what you knew you had a lot of interest and there'd be something there. It's not like you wanted to be hyper targeted like an engineer. It's like, oh, I got to make
Right.
sure I go to engineering school or anything like that. How did the academic, what did you end up settling
So
on and what did you try?
over behind, I ended up getting a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology and a Bachelor of Art
Wow.
in Communication. So I double majored. So I got two bachelors.
Wow. You're such a nerd. Holy cow.
I
Is that
mean, I
right?
mean, I take pride in it. Like, these two here, my
Yeah.
SEC academic honor roll plaques.
Dude. So
Up
you go ahead, go
there.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, up there, I was selected one year for the SEC Community Service Team.
So
And
you
then,
you got a BA in communications,
mhm,
a BS in kinesiology.
correct.
Tell me that it took you at least 5 years though to get all
It
this.
did.
Okay, sure.
Although I could have got it in 4.5.
Of course you could have. Holy
I mean,
cow.
well, my last semester, it was only an internship that I was finished out, so
Wow.
it was 6 hours. But looking back, had I known that I was going to go this route, I could have finished it in 4.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is 4.5. I finished the first degree, and I had those 6 hours. But
So
and
how
it's
how did you settle on those two? Because you're a very curious person, and I think curiosity is a superpower. So I love that. Jaquarious, I was a fan of yours before we sat down this conversation. You are making me an even bigger fan, my friend. And by the way, when I said what a nerd, that's a positive. Back when we were in school, that was a negative, right? When someone
right,
you
right.
call someone. Now that I'm old, it's like, oh man, I wish I was a nerd back in the day, or I wish when someone calls me a nerd about track coaches, I'm like, yep, that's right. I'm so ingrained into them. That's exactly right. So I don't mean that as a negative. I meant that as well as a positive.
Oh, for
How
sure.
did you settle on those two? I mean, those are two pretty, not
Big.
opposites, but they're not exactly. I've never heard of someone having those 2 degrees. How did you settle on those 2 degrees?
Well, first off, I want to just add in, since you bring that up. I thought about this a few years ago. People ask, is that what your major, or are you doing using your major, blah blah blah, quote unquote. But now I feel like I'm truly, I guess, embodying what I majored in because
Absolutely. No,
essentially,
now it makes sense. No, I'm not asking like, hey, why did you do those?
yeah,
You don't, I'm like, of course, communication and kinesiology, like that is, you take a track coach, that would be the 2 degrees that would tell you to go get exactly right. I'm just trying to think of like as a or as a college kid, how did you come up with these two?
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, throughout middle school, high school, well, middle school, I used to when YouTube first came, I used to make YouTube videos. You
Oh,
know, I used to edit them or do that and everything, playing around and stuff. Getting into high school, got away from it some because honestly, had I stuck with it, I probably would have a very strong following.
yeah.
People tell me all the time to post stuff, and I just things I post is just me being me. But
Yeah.
communication, like going about that, I've always been wanting to take pictures because I'm a photographer as
Yeah,
well.
I did know that. Right. Yep.
And so like just be dealing with the camera, editing software. When
Yeah.
I've always had that connection, I always thought about communication when I got to college, but it's what are you gonna do with it? But I knew I didn't necessarily want to be on camera per se or anything. I knew I like behind the scenes, and I knew that communication was fairly broad enough that I could, learn whatever on the job along the
Right.
way. But I've always had an interest in the body. At one point, like middle school, I wanted to be a doctor or like a surgeon and stuff. But then I thought about how much school it was and just kind of, got away from it. Not that I wouldn't do it, but I've always
It's
like
daunting, sure.
yeah, understanding the body was always kind of came easy to me, and I had a teammate that kind of helped push me toward bio. They was like, you should be biomechanical engineering. You're smart. You understand this and that and the third. Because he ended up becoming a chiropractor.
Huh.
Himself. He was a triple jumper. He was smart. We connected, but
Wow.
looked into it. Took a class. Didn't really do that, but I looked into the curriculum of kinesiology, and I found out look more on the specific what kinesiology was, what it embodied, and everything. So I went there. Ended up choosing that route. So I double major and also learned that because I did, I had academic counselors, but I also had, counselor for communications, counselor for kinesiology. But comparing the curriculums and seeing what courses there were, the route that I took in kinesiology, which is in the College of Education in Mississippi State, a lot of the classes had layout carryover into that. So I was able to take
Hmm.
classes that, satisfy requirements for that major along with that. And
Right.
it worked out to where in kinesiology, the actual cognate that I was under was sports studies. So essentially
Huh.
like sport management, sport administration
Yeah.
type deal. But I still took those classes and still learned it. And along the time of doing that, I'm learning about the body and I'm thinking about, okay, for the decathlon or the physics being applied, what do I need to do to make this happen? So, I'm learning about the sport, I'm learning about the body, I'm learning about
Wow.
essentially, applying biomechanics to physical principles in that nature. And so I ended up deciding on those two, and I knew figured something out because I honestly didn't
It's
come out of college
fascinating.
wanting to coach. I knew I always wanted to work like sport management, sport marketing, or sport
Yeah.
administration on the collegiate level or above. Because ultimately, I could see myself being, athletic director one day or director
Yeah.
over sports
Yeah.
um, organization or things of that nature.
Um,
So,
like a good coach, you got right into my next question because I didn't hear this in high school, uh, but maybe it happens during college. Where does coaching then become an idea? Because it's always fascinating to me, as I talk to coaches, that the majority, not everyone obviously, but the majority don't realize something that's being modeled right in front of them. As they had a high school coach and maybe a college coach, that oh wow, that could actually be a career. Like like most, it's not uncommon to hear the story of like I had no idea, but here was this guy or gal in front of me. They were doing it, but I never thought like they're getting paid. That's right. I was going to go do something else. And then one day it kind of hits them of epiphany, like, wait a minute, maybe I could do that. And then, you start learning that journey. I'm not hearing coaching necessarily so far.
yeah, no, not at all, not at all.
Yeah.
So at the time upon graduation, I was in grad school for sport administration, but I didn't finish. But during that time, I was still living in Starkville.
So if you finish your undergrad and your eligibility, you're still not like, oh, I'm going to go and become a coach.
Correct, because
Wow.
honestly, I didn't. I would say I didn't put in the. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I
Sure.
still didn't, but life was getting real. I didn't know what it was, and I knew one day I would get my master's. I'm actually in grad school now. Just
Right.
started this semester, but I knew one day I would get my master's in that. And when I began, or after I graduated, I started grad school, but again, I didn't finish. I just didn't put in the efforts needed. But during that same time, I just want to start my photography business and
Right.
everything and videography. So I started traveling with that, doing photography and videography, working a few jobs here and there.
I remember
I
those.
ended up
Yeah.
even going like to Olympic trials, working with Raven
Right.
Sons, did
Mm-hmm.
documentaries and everything,
That's right.
and started getting into personal training. because someone asked me to train them. I was asked plenty of times in college, but never really took it seriously.
Mhm.
And then I was okay as a friend. I was helping somebody out, and they insisted on paying me, and I started looking into it more, and then began to do that. And so by this time, now I'm 25, about to turn 26. So this is
Wow.
how I got into coaching. It was my mom that was like, JR, you need to find your job with some insurance. No, 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 no.
Ah, mom, always got the wisdom.
And so she started trying to put in applications for me, like on my behalf. I was like, whoa, 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 wait a minute, wait a minute. Like, I can do this. Like, I can do this. Cause like my mom didn't, like, she just trying to help. She didn't know, she doesn't understand like what schools or what sport or anything else to
Sure.
like I do. But she was kind of, starting to get in the ball. I'm like, okay, I can do this. And then while all this going on, I fall back on, lo and behold, JJ Downs.
Yeah.
Give him a phone call, like, hey, what should I be asking these questions? I'm thinking about doing this, that, and the third. What do you think of it? You think I could do it? Blah, blah, blah. So we're having this conversation, hitting up. And I remember I was at I remember I went to go to my fraternity's national convention in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. But prior to that, Coach JJ, it hit him one day. He's like, oh, man, I got a friend that's looking for a multis coach. I'm going to get you in contact with him, blah, 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 blah. That friend turns out to be Tommy Barksdale,
Oh, right. Yes.
who's at University of Montevallo. So
Yeah.
got in contact with Coach Barksdale, and Coach Barksdale and Coach Mark Hart, Coach Julia. They interviewed me initially over a phone call, and then they were okay. They wanted to bring me in for an interview in person. So ironically, when I was at the convention, I got that phone call that they wanted to bring me in. So right when I left the convention, I came back down through to Birmingham, stayed with my friend Curtis, who's now a real championship bronze medalist.
Yeah, Curtis, that's right. Well, congratulations. What a, so proud of him for the longevity side of it.
Right.
So he is very good friends with one of my teammates here, Tim Glover, who was a national champ javelin thrower. So him and Curtis have known each other for a long time. And Tim can, attest to, just the longevity. He's got Tommy John surgery himself. And
Right.
for Curtis to be at the, it's
I
funny
was
because
so happy to see
Curtis
it.
was a kid yesterday, so it's funny to say this, but Curtis at his age today to be throwing better than he ever had. What a great testament to somebody who's taking care of his body, taking care of
Mhm.
his mind, continues, stubborn, continuing with his craft. I mean, that was so awesome to see Curtis have that success and having a great year. So really proud of him. Absolutely. Glad you brought
Indeed.
him up.
Indeed. So I stayed with him, and I went to the interview the next day and everything. So because I was at the convention, I already had a suit and everything.
Right.
So I showed up and all, and upon seeing the school and everything like that, I waited. I was hoped for it because I was like, oh, when I saw the school, I was like, oh, everything here is needed to succeed. And they ended up offering the position, and that's how I got my start in the coaching.
So but I'm not okay. Love that. And after this is probably, excuse me, episode 340 something. So we've had 340 multiple coaches, right? Because there's some episodes we've had the whole staff. So probably pushing 400 different interviews of coaches from around the country, sometimes around the world, and each one, even today, is still very unique. I love that aspect. I love that your aspect, that your journey is different. I'm not hearing what would be the right word here? I don't want to say commitment because that's not the right word. You're obviously very committed to things that you put your mind to, like, oh, I'm going to go become a
Mhm.
decathlete. Oh, I'm going to get an education. I'm going to get 2 degree. Those kind of things. You're very committed to that. I'm not hearing oh man, I'm not sure what the word is here, Jay. You JJ suggests you take this interview like, hey, I've got a friend who's looking for a multis coach, and you're still kind of finding what I'm going to become. I'm not
Mhm.
hearing like this, like, oh, boom, I'm a track coach at this point.
Correct. So prior to, when I was doing that photography freelance and everything, this was 2021 when I began. So that's previous spring, I moved back home to Olive Branch from Starkville at the time from getting out of grad school and things. But during that spring, I was at Center Hill helping Coach JJ out. So essentially, I was doing operational things. He was like, "Hey man, I'll pay you to come start to be the starter." So
Oh,
starting.
did you really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So I've started meets
Let's
before.
see
I'm
here.
saying shooting them the 22s or the
Yeah, yeah.
everything. So I'm starting meets, but also obviously I'm there to help. So I'm helping like with setup, breakdown, concessions, post after the meets and things and whatnot. Because Coach JJ, that relationship goes way back, and I would have done it for free anyway, regardless. And all, but I had the time and I was around. So essentially, that was me coaching. I wasn't really coaching them,
Right.
the athletes at the time, because I wasn't like uh, um, I wasn't like a part of the staff or anything. And another a guy I graduated with, who when I made that third place medal, we used to say we were part of the Bronze Club. Louis Chapman, he was on staff as well, so I've seen him hanging out, and we were all just around, and I was helping with that. So I was
Did you
around.
want to coach, like, as you're going around doing these
I could
operational?
feel.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you this. Throughout my time as an athlete in Mississippi State, and while that was going on, as a teammate, I would always, I had one coach, he had different events. So sometimes my coach wasn't around, I would watch them. And oftentimes I would tell them what I thought or what I would think. And I would hear the coach say the same thing. I'd be like, yeah, I do this. I know what I'm talking about. Not thinking it down the line, foreshadowing I'd be coaching.
Yeah,
Always.
that's always interesting to me, is like these things that happen. That's a great example that we don't think much of. It's like, oh man, I felt really good when I'd say the same thing, but that wasn't like, oh, I'm going to become a coach, And now we look back, it's like, oh, I was kind of coaching back
Mm-hmm.
then, and just lo and behold, it became my career, right? I love that. And you had one of the top, doesn't get his due, honestly, Coach Steve Thomas there, one of the top coaches that we've had in collegiate history, and again, just does not get the due for. He's a quiet guy,
Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
he's ultimately a quiet dude, so it's easy to pass by him. But man, what a brilliant mind for
Indeed.
coaching,
I learned a lot
uh,
from him.
field events, multis, etc. So you had a great base from that. And JJ tries really hard, so that's good too. No, I'm just kidding, JJ. JJ very smart, been around a lot of great coaches, and obviously has coached a lot of great kids and himself. So it's the base that you have cooking that you don't even realize is kind of
Right. Like
stirring,
it's
leads to this. This is amazing. Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. So you're helping out, and then JJ's like, well, wait a minute, you should probably be a coach. I got a buddy, Tommy, that needs a coach, and but at this point, it's kind of like, all right, it's a job, like, and I'm prepared for it, but I don't
right.
hear like a burning desire of like, oh man, I found my calling at this point. And then we're just at the interview and getting accepted the job position.
Correct. So at this point, I'm open to it because the thing was, I was open to coaching, but I didn't think I would be coaching this soon, this early.
Hmm.
But and I saw it more as like a later on down the line thing. But God
Interesting.
works in mysterious ways.
Why? That's interesting. Why did you think of it like, did you think of it like, oh, for me, one day, like when I retire, I'll
Yeah,
volunteer coach? Or did you think of coaches? Because I think of like Steve Thomas, he was, near the end of his career, he coached for a long time. Or did you think of coaching as like, oh, that's what older people, and by older could be 40 years old, by the way, you're 25-ish at this point, for crying out loud.
right.
40 seems stupid old at that point, right? Or did you think of it more of like, oh, that's an older person's profession, or you personally like, oh no, I'm going to have some kind of career and then I'll give back and coach and volunteer.
So it was more of the former than the latter. It was just something I could see myself, giving back,
Yeah.
helping out, and everything like that.
You had
Also,
other plans as far as a career. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
yeah, didn't know what the plans were, but
Yeah. Right.
yeah.
Good
I knew
point.
sport management, administration, or sport marketing.
Something with
You know,
sport. Right.
And
Right.
because the way that I think, I always think of I like thinking of logistics. I like thinking about what other people think and all, and that's how I see things, see fit. Because ultimately, I want to get paid to think one day.
Yeah. 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 Well, I love that. You got the brain for it. That's for sure. Okay. So you get to University of Montevallo, and now you're the coach.
Now I'm a
And
coach.
that's different.
Yes.
I've talked with some of the most prepared people, like how they were coached, how they interacted as an athlete. That they're the most prepared. Like when they get a first coaching job, I'm like, you're the most prepared, and it's still different when you're the one writing workouts. You're the one dealing with 18 to 22-year-old kids. How did you talk us through that transition? How did that go for you?
Well, I just had to buckle down and get it done. I had about 2 weeks to get ready because this was
Yeah.
business. So I got to find a place to stay. I got to get somewhere.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. There's opportunities here. And, I've never formally coached per se. It's
Right. That's right.
like my designation,
You've
but
never written maybe not necessarily written a workout. You've never written call it a block of training, if you will. Yeah, yeah.
right, not for anyone else to truly like. I knew in my mind, I knew, had ideas of it, thought of,
Yeah,
knew what.
because you had it done to you.
Mhm.
Right, right, right.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I started like that. I leaned into my past experiences
Right.
and everything, and knowing at the time, so I was the jumps and Moses coach. So I'm coaching long jump, triple jump, pole vault, high jump, decathlon,
Hmm.
heptathlon.
All right.
all of which things I've done is to some capacity. We have throws coach as well
Mm-hmm.
on the team, Coach Michael Clemens, and all, and
He's a good dude.
indeed, and plus the rest of the staff. So my transition into it was, just getting in and essentially starting from there, kind of going, seeing where the athletes are, what they can or cannot handle, and whatnot, getting to know them and showing up knowing what it's like. Because I knew, or I thought in my mind, I knew, okay, if I could at least get 1 week of workouts, I've essentially got a block because we do, and kind of into the philosophy of things, more or less, I work in essentially 3 week training blocks or 4, but mainly 3 weeks. Adaptations take about 21-ish days to get there. So
Yep.
that fourth week is usually like a deload, testing, resting week.
Yep.
And I pretty much took that staple and ran with it.
Yep.
The first week, first month, boom. Okay, now develop into the next one is just progressing forward more.
Yep.
Do the same thing, boom. Okay, we got to get more into specifics or, technique
Mm-hmm.
training and everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And just kind of grew from that, listening to, and once we get to the coaches convention, hearing how the coaches set it up, speaking with other coaches,
Mm-hmm.
hearing how
Mm-hmm.
they do their training, looking things up, finding out information about, got different sprints, books and other things. Coach
Mm-hmm.
JJ let me have some books of his.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm, glancing through and reading.
How did you, well, hold on. Let me make sure I know a little bit of background here. What was your decathlon PR?
So my PR was 7,177
Okay,
points.
I thought you were over 7, which is
Yeah.
bonkers. Again, I know we can compare all we want, and 8,000 is a big number and all those kind of things. Dude, if you hit 7,000 in the decathlon, honestly, if you look at the actual mark, if you hit 6,000, you're an athlete.
It's crazy. My very first decathlon was 62:05, and I felt
Was
like it
that
was.
right?
And then my very second one was 62:05, and I was like hurt my freshman year of college and other things. Yeah, I was
Wow.
Mr. Consistent.
Yeah, right.
I actually scored my first time scoring 7,000. I scored a 7,000 flat.
Oh, wow,
And
really?
it was at SEC Championships 2015, and I was ninth place.
Dude. Wow, that's actually, I mean, it's just a number, but it's still that's just funny how
Yeah,
that worked out. Yeah.
of
Um,
all.
so you score 7,000, you're good at like above average athlete here, okay? How
Mhm.
did you and you were athletic I'll call it your whole life, but definitely through high school and stuff, right? And then obviously college. How did you like I'm always interested with that with people that were, above average to great athletes when they first start coaching. I worry about because some things come naturally to you. You have the thing that you can't coach. You have some genetics, and then you were coached. That's the ultimate, right? When you have genetics and you were coached, and we sometimes, depending on the level, but really not, we start working with athletes, and they come in all varying stages. When you got to Montevallo, there was somebody there in the jumps multis crew that was a pretty good athlete, where they were 6,000 decathlete type of person or 23 plus foot long, whatever. There were some athletes there. And then you had other kids that were, probably athletes, but maybe hadn't been coached or were new to an event or new to college, etc. How did you, because you had a very intense coach, Steve Thomas is a very, very good coach. You had Steve Dudley, a very intense coach. How did you, and maybe you made some mistakes, but how did you like figure out like, oh, I can push this much with these kids at this point? Now I hope to be able to get to, a year or two or whatever down the line and push them harder. But how did you figure out like, oh, they're not picking this up like I did? Like I got to teach, I got to coach here. How did you figure out that aspect of coaching as you start this new career?
Another great question. So I'm big on relationships and building up, getting to know people and everything. I know my experiences through coaching. I know things that I liked, disliked, or might have wished was better. At times I felt like
Hmm.
worked. So, taking all things considered
Yep.
into my approach to coaching and everything with my personality,
Hmm.
along with the personality of my athletes as we look to mesh, because I try to, meet them where they are, so to speak, in ways. Because again, me getting into coaching, I'm not knowing where they are, and I'm coaching women as
Right.
well.
Right.
When I'm a little more, aware, hip to men's times compared to women's, but regardless of
Right.
which, kind of it's trial and error, figuring out
Yeah.
where they are, what they can do, what they cannot do, as well as figuring out where their minds is. But I will say, when I got there, and I had talks with Coach Barksdale about this and other things. Background I come from, SEC school, big time, high standards, but I was at a Division II school, and when I first got there, I felt like some of the athletes saw themselves, box themselves in as only, oh, we're just Division II, or we're only D2.
Mhm.
Whereas what I saw from it, I was like, So like it doesn't matter. Like regardless, D1, D2, D3, NAI, JUCO, the effort to be successful remains the same across the board. Like it doesn't matter what to your comparative point. That's me doing this on the coach side. It doesn't matter what it is or where it's at. Like in order to be great, in order to improve, this still has to happen, regardless of where you are. And I look to try to embody that. And I think that led over time to my coach philosophy being like right now is like communication and effort. Being on communication. As long as I'm building my athletes and they let me know what's going on, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, academically, it
Uh-huh.
helps me get to know them and they get to know me so I can learn where they are. It might be days where, they might need to be pushed more where I know, okay, look, I think you got more in you. Let's push it right here. Or they might actually be being consistent in their work efforts. And I'm like, okay, we don't have it today. Or they might say, hey, coach, I got, a lot going on. Okay, let's take the day off and see where we are from there. And effort. I always say, all I ask is your best effort. If I can ask you, do you feel like you gave your all? And if they can honestly say yes, I'm good as coach. Because what more can I ask for? Because I'm going to continue to push them and try to push them past their limits and everything to that point. But that's all that I ask for as a coach. If you give me effort, then you will grow. You will be successful in some type of way. You will succeed. And so that's kind of where I've gotten to and where I'm
Y-
getting at as a coach.
You're talking from my experience as someone who has coached 10, 15, 20 years. You've made a lot of mistakes, and in your 10th year, you start figuring things out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is your first year of coaching, first couple of years of coaching here at Montevallo. Where does this? I mean, you're a little bit beyond your years of age here. You know what I say, mean when I say that?
Heard that before.
You kind of gave a face. Okay, see, well, you're always ahead of me. Dang it, Jay. I was just about to ask. You've heard that before because your face was like, yeah, that's a common theme amongst my life. Is that something you've exhibited from a very young age?
Yeah, I would say so. Being that shout out to my mom, my grandmama, just them, growing up because I've always been generally fairly like respectful and all. And it's a few things even from like high school. I remember I had a teammate. He was like, "Man, Jaquarius, like, how do you do it? Or what is that?" Like, he was like, "Either you good at sports and bad in school, or you're bad in sports and good in
Yeah,
school.
yeah,
Well, how you both?" And it's just how I was raised or what I look to move forward to, and just just the across the board, it's just that effort. I try to be a good person to people. I try to be intentional. Try not to disrespect people. Try to be good hearted and I have good intent in my mind and my heart on how I move forward. And I try to I ask people how they when I ask people like how you doing, I genuinely mean it. It's not just a formality.
right.
It's a like genuinely because you never know what people are going through or how they are, what's going on.
Yeah,
If I'm the one reason a person smiles for the day or says something for the day, I'm cool with it because you just never know
yeah.
what's going on with things and all. So I've always generally been like that, and it comes from I would say
Dude, you're
my
amazing. You
yeah.
know, not that I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I am a big Yoda fan, right? And so, his famous saying is, do or do not, there is no try. You said there that you try to be a good person. You try, you're not trying, you're doing, my friend. I harken back to when I first met you at convention. And I think it was was that your first year
That was
at
my
Montevallo?
first year, very first year.
And I know Tommy introduced you, and I've known Tommy for a long time through Troy and all those kind of things. So I've loved Tommy. We're friends, not just people who work together, right?
Mhm.
And sell stuff and all that kind of stuff. Like I consider Tommy a friend, and so there's a little bit of like, oh, my boss has introduced me to someone he knows well and all that kind of stuff. I'm always amazed that when I meet athletes who I'm gonna say pay attention to me, and what I mean by that is like they actually have conversations with me.
Mhm.
Like actually, one of the people we just talked about, Curtis Cordell Tench, who just won the world
Right.
champs in the hurdles. I met him his last year at Pitt State, which and he was a baller as a senior. I mean, he was kicking butt, right? So he was a super athlete. I don't know that we necessarily saw that he was going to win the world champs within 3 or 4 years, but we knew he was going to have some kind of
He was
professional
a heck of
career. Yeah, so he should have been a decathlete, right? I mean, come on, right? That's yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a lot of people that
Yeah, yeah.
being
I knew all the cathletes do that. Like,
overall in that 1500. It's
yeah,
only a
that
kid
stops a
not
lot of
underrated.
careers.
It
But,
does.
but like Cordell, like I mean, we must have had a 15, maybe close to 30-minute conversation at a meet once. And I was just like, it always just blows me away because I'm like, I'm nothing to an athlete. Like, I don't do anything. I know we make stuff, but to a coach, maybe. But you in your first year, like, just coming off being an athlete. And I know we had a little bit of connection because of Mississippi State, so there was a little bit like, oh, that dude worked at the place I, was a student at and all this kind of stuff. Uh, but you were just like, it was an immediate like, oh, this dude's cool. Like he respects me. I have a lot of respect for him. Like it was automatic. There was no brush off. There was no, you're at convention for the first time. And I think we met the first night, but it's a wide-eyed experience of like, oh my God, there's all these coaches and there's all these things to do. And there's a bar, it can be easily overwhelming for a first-time participant for sure. In fact, I'm super proud. This group of coaches started this last year. They went to SAM and they started this. I love this. This was not a USTF initiative. This was a coaches initiative. They started. You would have loved this. They started a newcomer, first-time coach, first-time participant program at USTFCA. So on that first day, for an hour, they come together with 4 experienced coaches and really talk about, hey, here's how to really maximize the convention. Like, here's what it's not. Here's what it should be. Here's what my experiences are. And I get to host that. So it's amazing for that. But it's overwhelming. And you were just so, actually, here's probably the best compliment I give you. You are today who you were then. That's probably the best compliment I give you. It's like, oh man, you're respectful. It's very apparent from just hearing a little bit, because I probably asked you, it's like, oh, what'd you like at Mississippi State? I used to be there, and I probably tried to be cool and like, I used to coach Trey Hardy. You're the decathlete, you should know that, right? Yeah, and I'm kind of cool, right? But obviously education was important to you and things like that. It's just amazing, just where you're so young. I mean, if you're doing this at 35, it's like, you've made a few mistakes, you've learned. You're doing this at 25. It blows me away. Blows me away. Speaking of education, but by the way, we're at our time. Are you still
I'm
good,
good.
or you're good?
I'm
Okay,
good.
I'm okay. All
Good. Good.
right. What what have you done at this point? So we're still stay in Montevallo. Montevallo, if this comes beyond, we'll get there. But at this point, are you doing or have thought of any coaching education? Your education is obviously an important thing to you, and I've always described coaching education as kind of two different things: informal and formal. Formal being like our USATF level ones, level twos, USTFCA, Altus, things like that. Informal is, I called up Coach Thomas and was like, "Hey, so now I'm on this side of the whistle. What you did this to us once? Why did you do that? Because I was thinking about doing it, but I don't know if it's right for these kids." What have you done at this point? You call it your first, second year at Montevallo for coaching education.
So at this point, when I'm at Montevallo, I really just read or looked into the practices, programs, things that I had and whatnot that I
Mm-hmm.
kept over time and everything. And then 'cause I didn't really call too many people
Mm-hmm.
at the time. But I think after the convention and after that, then just having conversations with coaches about that. And then as I'm at meets, I would see them, give them calls, because I definitely do a lot of the informal
Mm-hmm.
conversations. It might come up, and then same, just like this past year, Mississippi Valley State, Steve Thomas is actually at a FAMU, which is in the SWAC.
Oh, is he
He's
really? He's with G? I didn't know that.
mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
I saw him there, so I'm there coaching alongside of it. But also prior to that, over the years, I would at meets where after he left Mississippi State, I'd be around. So that's how I also knew. I remember one time it was a meet at Emory, and I was listening to him coach. Actually, that's my coaching education. I would say that
Mm-hmm.
I listen to other coaches all the time when they're coaching their
Interesting.
athletes.
Yeah.
I'm really not. I don't want to say I'm eavesdropping,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
my ears working.
Yeah.
But I do pay attention to how they interact, uh,
Yeah.
the things that they say, keywords, or if I might watch and see the athlete perform, and I'm thinking what I might see them doing or improvement, as well as hearing what they might be telling them,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
same or not, or something different, or something I didn't think of, and
I
like
think that's really valuable, Jay.
I do that a lot. Honestly, I do that a
That
lot.
is definitely an informal, but
It's,
it makes me think of kind of a little bit of formalization of that. At USTFCA convention, I think they started it last year. I know they're going to do it again this year. These I Spy events, right? So
I've
a
been to
coach
them.
has an athlete, right? And you
Mhm.
kind of now it's a little bit more set up. It's not more
Yeah,
natural, but still you can kind of see
you can get the concept.
you hear some of that terminology, right? And then and I wish this was more in our sport, in our profession, than track and field coaching. When you go visit a coach, like, hey, I'm going to come visit you for a week or 2 days and just hang out at practice. And then you get to see, again, same thing. They're in their environment. They almost forget about you, and you kind of want them to forget about you a little bit because then they're just
Mhm.
natural doing what they do. And you get to just All right, I'll ask him later. Why'd you say that? Why'd you do that? I
Mhm.
think that's extremely valuable. So you're kind of doing it informal. You're spying on coaches at meets, which it's right there in front of you. You take advantage of it.
Yeah, I definitely listen, and
Yeah,
I even do it. I do it with the coaches that I've coached with, because even now, like if I'm listening to Coach Snap, Michael Snap, the head coach here at Mississippi
yeah,
Baptist State,
great dude. Love him.
indeed, if he's coaching someone or like how he interacts, I'm paying attention to, what he's saying, how he's saying it, and
Right.
everything as he's speaking them. And the same thing, even when I would be at practice, and they would allow me, like when I was at Montevallo, it allowed me not only like if I had my practice going on with my group or whatever events, that was cool, but times where I had time, I would visit other groups' practice just to, just to
Of course you
see,
did.
hang
Yeah,
out, support, blah blah blah, but
yeah,
also to listen, because I would distance coaches Tommy and Julia, listen to them, what they were talking about, what they were doing. Throws coach Michael Clemens, hearing how he's interacting, what he's
yeah,
saying and stuff. I'm taking notes as well, because I'd like to be able to, just be somewhat aware across
yeah.
the board of all, because I find that I really enjoy coaching sprints, as far as like, I'm a jumps guy at heart and everything, like
Hmm.
jumps guy at heart. But when I started coaching jumps, I coach with jumpers like sprinters. Anyway, because essentially to be a great jumper, you have to be a great sprinter. You gotta have the technique, have speed and everything. But I find I really enjoyed it. So I also listen in on those other things. So I'm always like learning, even the
Yeah.
more coaching education. A lot of people don't know this. Saying I'm on Instagram, social media, right? And I utilize social media fairly good bit, maybe more than I should at times. But a lot of times, sometimes it's like my getaway, it might be relaxing, my
Mhm.
mind, mental. But a lot of times as well, I get a lot of information from that because of pages I follow, people I follow, and what I've done. And this has been years to this point. There's an option to create a collection
Hmm.
or save something. So I have different collections saved, like long jump drills, high jump,
Wow.
hammer, shot, distance, and I've even got like post save, collection save. Now I'm giving people free game, so to speak. But this is what I do. It might be like, this upcoming year, 2026 is the next year. So if I come across Kids page, and I've got 2026 recruits, I'll add them to that
Right.
collection, and just different drills, different hamstring strength and muscular stuff, neck pain or shoulder. It's
Yeah.
it's all type of list that I have,
That
and I
is
go through and
that is so cool, dude. First of all, because certainly there's some spectrum of coaches that hear that and go, social media, my day, blah, blah, blah. They're jealous. They wish they had literally a resource in the palm of their hands. What I would encourage you to do, we talked a little bit about earlier about those three things you want to think about doing, right? Coaching a clinic, facility, and a summer club. Uh, I don't think so, but I don't get to see everything. Have you spoken at clinics very much?
I have not spoken at clinics at all yet. I feel
All
like
right.
one day I
Not
will or
not
will.
not one day. No, I'm going to cut you off right there. Not one day. Now, you need to be speaking for a couple of reasons. One, you're very intelligent. I mean, we just need more and more intelligent speakers. Not that the speakers we have today are not intelligent, but we just need more. One of the hardest things a clinic director goes through is booking speakers. It's literally one of the hardest things that they have doing. Mostly because a lot of coaches don't think they have a voice. And so they say, nah, I can't do. I want to, but I can't. That's not me. We need more and better opportunities, options out there for speakers. Two, when you teach it, you know this, you're a smart guy. So you've seen this. When you teach something, you learn it better yourself. You've seen this in coaching probably, where when you have an athlete describe something to another athlete, that athlete describing it goes, oh, wait a minute. I actually never thought about, wait, when I just said that, the teaching is also learning, right? So you'll become a better coach from actually speaking. Three, this topic, because I love like twist of things, like you think one thing and then I move over here, right? You thought I was zigging, I'm zagging. I
Right.
could see a topic from you called social media coaching, or how to coach through social media. And there's going to be like this. Oh my, what are you talking about? Social media is the worst for coaching because of all the, you hear all the negatives of coaching social media, and you get up there and say, here's how social media, specifically maybe Instagram in this case, has helped me to become a better coach, and you show your technique
Process.
of these. Yeah. And people go, well, crap, wait a minute. I've only thought of the evils of Instagram. Here he's showing me the positives. like you'll make the coaching body better because you're right. I've not heard this, and and I talk to a lot of coaches, right? And I talk to a lot of coaches on social media. Like I'm a big social media guy and social media advocate. Like I think it's I like to think of the positives of social media versus the negatives, and there certainly are negatives, but there are a lot of positives. This is a huge positive. So I am going to encourage you. I know there's a Mississippi clinic. I know there's an Alabama clinic. Um, I need you. I need to send you information on how to do a self-recorded Gil 1918 project podcast. I point at my phone like you can see it right here. So you can start thinking about the structure. Like you can start workshopping it almost. Yeah, yeah. But I'm hosting kind of 2.5 clinics. And I don't know when this is actually going to publish. You may be listening to this right now and thinking this is already done, but on November 1, I'm hosting MC, and I'm not in charge of the clinic. I'm MCing a clinic November 1 up in Kankakee, and then November 7th, November 8th, I'm MCing the University of South Florida guys and gals are putting on a clinic down in Tampa, and then I'm helping with the Glazier Clinic. That's a free clinic online in December. They're always looking for speakers, bro. You got to put yourself out there, and you're good at that. This is something foreign to
Yeah.
you. You're good at that. You just got to start now and quit thinking a little bit like your coaching earlier thought of like, oh yeah, this is something I'll do. Yeah, 10 years from now, I'll be worthy to speak. Bull crap. You're worthy to speak today. That's why I don't have an age limit on the podcast. I don't go, if you haven't coached 10 years, you don't. Bull crap. I've had a kid as an athlete was on this podcast because he wanted to be a coach. And there was something to learn from him. And now he's a coach. He's at Jacksonville College doing a great job down there. Uh, you have something to give. You have value at every point of your career and every point of your life. And today, right now, you have value, Jay, not only to your athletes as a coach and to your family and friends and your network, but to other coaches to help educate them. You don't know it all. Absolutely not. By the way, the greatest, in my opinion, clinician, Bush Exnader, my personal mentor as well, he doesn't know it all. And he didn't let that stop him to start teaching other people. And look what he has developed through the coaching world. You're influenced by Boo, and you probably don't even know it. Tommy, I know, was influenced, but Steve Thomas was influenced by
I
Boo.
watch it and
KJ
everything.
was influenced. So that is what we have to do for each other. And we either start today or we start 10 years from now, when we should have started today. All right. That's my encouragement for you, is to get that done. All right. Let's keep moving forward here. We got to start wrapping up here in a second. How many years at Montevallo?
I spent 3 years there.
I thought 3 or 4. So how'd it go? This is your first coaching job, your first gig. How did it go? Taking all this amalgamation of all these things you've learned into coaching, my friend.
Amalgamating it all. I thoroughly enjoyed my time and experience at University of Montevallo. I was provided with a great opportunity to coach, and it was my first time coaching. Coach Barksdale took a chance on as I would say there, just a former photographer, just a former personal trainer, blah, blah, blah. I did currently personal train while I was there as well. I worked at Crunch when I was at Montevallo.
Right.
But my time there was great. I feel like there were all resources needed to succeed. I feel like Coach Barstow built up a great program for where it had gotten to. I feel like throughout that time while I was there, I mentioned the athletes somewhat thought of themselves as just Division II. I feel like by the time I left, I was really proud to see the development of, by the time, over time when athletes I was recruiting, and as I was just being consistent over time with that mindset change. I'm big on like culture and mindset. And I could definitely tell that there's a difference in how the athletes approached things
Love it.
as they move forward with it. And I definitely can say that, I helped change the program.
Yeah, you positively move the culture forward. I love that. That's great. Of course you did.
And even this year, being at a meet, we were at the same meet as they were. Ironically, our tents were next to each other. But there was an athlete that I recruited that came up to me and was like, Coach, I just want to say I appreciate you for recruiting me, come here and everything. Because essentially he was saying that because he didn't look to change schools or anything. He committed to there and wanted to go. But I think that he was really enjoying his experience. I know he had a great freshman year and everything, but just, something like that. And I've experienced it now that I'm coaching longer. I got an athlete. I went to my first the first athlete that I coached and I've watched graduate and now got married. I was invited to his wedding.
Yeah, it's a big deal as a coach. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know,
There's stages in our not transformation, but our growing up as a journey in coaching, and that is always one of them that always sticks out. It's like, oh wow, they thought so much of me. They invited me to their wedding. That's a big deal. That's so cool. Yeah.
I was invited to the wedding, so that was great. The reflect the words of sentiment that I've been told. I got a few handwritten letters from some and all and whatnot. Like it just when I tell people a lot of time with coaching or anything else, like it's very rewarding. It's cliche,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it is like when you have those moments that may or may not be few and far in between, it just kind of reminds you or puts you in perspective of that. Because even like here at Mississippi Valley State now, this weekend we play Texas Southern, but I got an email just a couple days ago that they want to recognize me at halftime for something called the Champions of the Game, and it was some of their student athletes were had us selected. They selected two staff and two faculty members that they felt like have had impact on them positively through dedication, hard work, and blah
Shut
blah blah.
up,
And it's like,
dude,
oh, recognize me at halftime.
bro.
Yeah, it really put a smile on my face.
I love that you're
On
getting
my heart.
Yeah, I love that you're getting some flowers at this young age. Sometimes, a little bit like we talked about your mentality, and it's easy to get into it. I understand it. I have some of it myself of like, oh, in my 30th year coaching, wow, to be at halftime, do like that's cool. Why didn't you tell that person in year five? But why didn't you tell? It's kind of the thing I think about when I think about we're very collegial. I can never say that word. We're very friendly with amongst our coaching brethrens and sisterns, right? And even towards our mentors, right? Like you think about Coach Thomas and Coach Downs and stuff like that. And when, not if, Coach Downs, JJ passes away, right, where Father Time is undefeated, it's going to devastate you. It's going to devastate me as a friend. We're going to be at his funeral. We're going to speak our love over him to other people that are there, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just like, why aren't we doing that right now? Why aren't we calling our JJs in our life? Why aren't we, me calling a boo in my life? And obviously, you can extrapolate out to friends and family outside of our profession. But why aren't we telling the men and women who have unbelievably positively impacted our lives as athletes and as coaches? Why aren't we telling them today what they mean to us? Why are we like, oh, yeah? Because think about it this way. Here's how we actually operate, but we would
Mhm.
never say this out loud, Jay. Uh, you know, when Coach Thomas dies, I'll tell him how great he was and how much I'm thankful for him. That's what we're doing, but we would never say that, right? Like, well, that's just
Right,
why would you say that? But that's what
right.
we're doing. So let's stop doing that and unofficially saying that. Instead say, you know what, I'm going to use today to go tell someone who meant a lot in my life thank you. Just saying thank you. That the same
Mhm.
sentiment you have for going to this halftime, which is amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
That is the same sentiment of a whether it's a handwritten by the way, the delivery method means nothing. I know everybody gets romantic about handwritten notes and all that kind of stuff, and that's great. You know why I don't send handwritten notes? You can't read my handwriting. I'm terrible at handwriting. But you know what? When someone sends me a text out of the blue and it says, "Hey man, thanks," or I appreciate what you did for me back when I was a high school freshman or whatever, blah blah blah. That means a lot. I don't look at
you.
that text and go, "Well, if it really meant something to you, you'd have written a letter." Right, right. This is dumb. Do it today. Send a text, email, call, write a letter. That's fine to someone and just say thank you because you are built. And I know I'm talking to you specifically, but you listening, you stand on the shoulders of other people that helped you out. Don't wait until they're dead. That's my best advice I can give on that. All right, you're doing a great job at Montevallo. You're learning. You continue to learn as a coach. You're spying on other coaches at meets and continue to learn. I love that. After 3 years, why leave and where?
Well, when I was at the University of Montevallo, I ended up having opportunity chance reached out to by Coach Morgan at Lee University, and then considering it and everything, I'm looking at it because I'm like, okay, is it that I'm afraid for change? Is it not? Because I've only been in one place and everything from there. And so then I'm thinking about it. I'm going back and forth. Speak to Coach Barksdale about it and everything. And then I decided to take the leap and everything. So it was a slightly more favorable opportunity for what I felt or what I justified as at the time to make. So then went over to Lee University, spent a few months there, But then after those few months, then I was gone from there. I was let go from there, and then after that, I also had an uncle that was that took sick leave during that time as well. So this was September and December of this past 2024
Mm-hmm.
during that time period. And so during that time of transitioning, and then again, uncle being sick, I ended up moving back. Well, not moving back. I ended up coming down to Carrollton, Mississippi,
Mm-hmm.
and everything because that's where he was living and setting up. Basically, was his caregiver for
Right.
hospice
Right.
and all. Prior to that, I knew he was sick, but I'd also went to this year's coaching convention, so I wasn't coaching,
Right.
and so I went there as a free agent.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm
That's a
looking.
pretty good place to be a free agent at.
You
I'm not
know,
gonna lie.
I'm like, okay, let me roll the dice.
Yeah.
Gamble my life, take a
I love that
chance.
you invested in yourself though, because a lot of times we do those things because our university's paying for it. That's easy. A little
Mhm.
less easy when you got to pay for it out of your pocket. But you wanted to invest in yourself. So I think that's a kudos to you, my friend. Absolutely.
Thank you. It definitely was, just doing it on your own, getting there, and with lodging and with
Yeah.
all the things involved and whatnot. But I felt like, okay, I think I can go. I can make it happen. This is because the years leading up to your point, what you said earlier, I can tie this back in. Now, that first year, I took it as to see whether how I enjoy coaching or not. And
Mm,
after that first year, I started, diving into it more, and then it got to a point just over time to where like it felt right, it felt comfortable. So I guess now I'm comfortable with saying like this is my current career.
hmm hmm
I am I enjoy what I do. I enjoy how it is. I've been enjoying it thus far. And then for me personally, I'm not saying that I want to coach or will coach forever
Right.
necessarily, but at the time being, I'm enjoying it and I'm pouring into it to make the most of it. I love that I'm able to being around, young adults, help them develop as people and watch their progress over time, as well as just enjoying it. Because, essentially it feels like I'm going to practice without having to do the workouts.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, yeah. I
I
get the
mean, that's
benefits of going, but I ain't got to sweat and throw up.
right, right. The athletes are funny. I feel like they keep me young. They call me old all the time, even though I'm only 30 now.
Yeah.
But yeah. So with that being said, I found love in coaching,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm like, okay. And when I got out of it for that period of time, I'm like, okay, that's currently what I know. I was looking at and considering other options or other thoughts and ways
hmm
of ways of living, but it kept going back to coaching right now
Right.
and everything. So I went to the convention, made some connections, met some people, left from the convention, went back home for Christmas. And when I went home, I unexpectedly was gone for those like 3 weeks, 4 or like 3 or 4 weeks, because I left for the convention from my place. I was still living in Cleveland,
Right.
Tennessee, and then I get all the way to Carrollton, Mississippi, and then I'm staying for the hospice. And I was afraid to leave because I thought, the time I leave to try to go back, God forbid something happened. So didn't leave. Uncle ended up passing away, unfortunately. But
Oh, I'm
during that
sorry.
time, wow, thank you. During that time while I was there, because Carrollton, Mississippi, for those that don't know, is only about 30 minutes from Mississippi Valley State, Itabena, Mississippi. And
Okay.
my hometown, I was born in Grenada, Mississippi, but my hometown is Carrollton, Mississippi. So I'm in the same place where like I grew up, stayed with my grandma until I was 5 before
Right.
I moved to Memphis
Right.
and then moved to Olive Branch Middle School. So it's like, full circle type deals
Yeah.
because it just so happened that and shout out to Lane. He was the one that he texted me and was like, hey, um, the Mississippi Valley State coach or Coach Snap, whatever you might say, if you know him, is looking for an assistant. And Coach Snap and I, prior to that, have crossed paths, being that I've seen him. He used to be at Alabama State. And I was
Right.
at the University of Montevallo. We be at some meets together. Hey, coach, going on? We speak here and there. But and one time I went to a convention while I was at Montevallo by myself because Tommy didn't go for whatever reason.
Okay.
Coach Clem unfortunately had an accident, a car accident, and couldn't go. And Coach Julie didn't go, so I was there representing for myself. So I'm by myself at this
Right.
convention. And I remember on the way back, we were going to the same boat flying in Birmingham. So he and I had this conversation, like the first conversation we had, like it was like probably like an hour long or so. I don't remember what we spoke about,
hmm
but I just remember we had a really good conversation and got to know him then. Lo and behold, a little over a year later, I text him, we get in contact, and throughout that process from about January to February, now boom, here I am, Mississippi Valley State University
Wow.
in March outdoor. So he
Huh.
brought me in. It's just he and I here on staff and everything. I know, and I've heard him say we've had a few conversations where he brought me in because obviously he needed a coach, but also he had seen me coach before
Mm-hmm.
and noticed. Remember, coach, he spied on me unintentionally
Mm-hmm.
beforehand, so you never know who's watching as well.
Right.
But see me coaching and all, I felt like I could do the job and everything. Like we spoke, and since I've been here, I've enjoyed my time here in Mississippi Valley State. I've been welcomed in with open arms. This is my first time not only coaching or being at an HBCU, but also being at a Division I school.
Right.
So I'm getting a chance to learn and grow in that nature and everything. I'm staying at home. My grandma was 91. And when my uncle passed, it was just her and him living at the house.
Mm.
So that also allowed kind of me to be there with her. So I get to watch
Yeah.
TV because she's still able and capable of doing things herself and all. But
Yeah.
just being around in case of little things, fixing stuff, taking her to the
Yeah.
store and things like that. And so I live there, and I make the 35-minute strong 35-minute commute there to Valley each day because Valley does have like on campus staff housing and things.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I come to work and everything. And since I've been here, I've been getting to know the school, getting to know people. I'm already aware of the area, and for those that aren't aware, the Delta is one of the most impoverished areas of
Mm-hmm.
Mississippi in the country. There's a lot of historical significance if you choose to go look it up about things that are of occurrences or how the land is, the culture, and everything like that. But this is something that I was aware of coming in because this area is, and it's very, unique and special to itself because of how it is. But it's something that would be difficult to understand unless you're,
Yeah.
from the area, from nearby. But I think that with the opportunity that's in front of me while here, with the mindset that I have, kind of the energy that I bring, and from what I see, even when I first got, I could see Valley's trying to move forward in motion in ways. That's one of the school monikers slogan.
Nice.
One goal, one team, one Valley in motion. But I see the progress. I see the actions behind the progress and the efforts being put in. So, I think that I'm in a great place for the age that I am and where I
Yeah.
am in life, being able to stay where I'm staying and come here and look to grow the program because, historically speaking, been, on the lower end of the spectrum of things, but I think that we can be able to build up the culture and build up the change the mindsets and move forward. Coach Knapp is leading to his third year currently,
Mm-hmm.
and everything. He comes from a history of success being at Alabama State. I've had some success while at the University of Montevallo, some conference champions and things. And he and I are both on, the same page with a lot of ways of how we think. Our deliveries are different, but he and I, work in tandem with one another. He allows me to do my thing over here with my group, and he'll come to me at times, hey, coach, what you think of this or that? I ask him the same thing. He's there for support. I was just, that he's doing that. So, we're rocking and rolling on just trying to build up the program and move it forwards because people are asking, how's it valid? I let them know I'm trying to make the most with the least and
That's right.
everything, just being frank of where it is, but also the people and the culture and how it is, it's all in your approach, your mindset on how you move forward with it. And right now, I'm just working on, hopefully being able to mold and change the mindsets of the athletes that we currently have and then to teach them, show them that, hey, these things are possible, but all you got to do is, you communicate, put in the effort and push yourselves and try because that's what it'll be and what it'll take to get successful as we continue to build this, essentially from the ground up and we move forward to where we want to be to being, more competitive. I would love to be able to, or I would love once we get to that point where I'm throwing in, people don't know this yet, but I was thinking about I might have a little hashtag, social media thing. But I thought about something in hashtag shock the SWAC.
Hmm.
One day I want to be able to get to that point where we can shock
Yeah.
the. Because in Montevallo, I used to say, the field we were on, the first year I came in, I had some conference champions. So I was like, oh, now that's the standard. I'm thinking like that's where I got to be at. But our lacrosse team also had won some championships, and we shared the field lacrosse. And by the
Yep.
time second year there, you can look at it on my Instagram post. I always used to put hashtag championship grounds, championship
Mm-hmm.
grounds. So I was always saying that, the mindset and putting it toward and everything. And that's what I work toward. And so here, we still got work to do, but that's okay. We're still moving forward. But as we continue on, as we improve it with that and get better, I'll be so excited once we get to that point where we shot the sweat.
Jaquarius, you confound me, and here's what I mean by that. I believe that everybody is put on this earth to do one thing really, really well. Now, the majority, don't ever find that one thing. Like, maybe you were supposed to be the world's best violinist, but because of, where you grew up and there was no interest in violin, you never get a violin in your hand. And so that thing that God put you on earth for, if you'd have grabbed the violin, I would have dropped, bro. Let me just tell you. And I, a lot of times, and again, my life is consumed with track coaches for many obvious reasons. I think the people that I have in front of me, like, oh yeah, you were put on this earth to be a track coach to positively impact young people.
Mhm.
I, I don't know about you, and here's why. Again, there's nobody a bigger fan than track coaches than me. So, you'd think I would be cheerleading for everybody to become a track coach and things like that. I think whatever you're supposed to be put on this earth trumps being a track coach for crying out loud, right? You said something earlier that I think I gravitate more from hearing your journey, thinking about your background. I think maybe more administration. And here's why, because I like to encourage track coaches to go into administration because a lot of decisions that occur in our sport, those are happening in administrative meetings. Well, I sure would like someone who has some kind of knowledge and passion about our sport to be in those meetings, right? So when I meet an athletic director that was also a track coach or a track person, I go, oh, a little bit happier. Like, okay, you at least know our sport. You're not all just focused on other things, right? But I think about your impact, and you're certainly making an impact today as Coach Wilson, no doubts about it. You're positively impacting 18 to 22-year-olds. But I think there's something greater for you, my friend. I don't want to say you're too intelligent to be a track coach because that puts down our track coaches. And there's some amazingly smart track coaches out there, book smart, intelligent track coaches, beyond the sport itself. I don't know, man. I just think there's something greater. And again, there's no bigger track coach fan than me. That's one of the greatest professions you can have. And there's just something there, whether it's a business that you're going to create, whether it is administration, whether it's something in the state of Mississippi that's obviously a very important part of you and your life and your DNA. I don't know, man. It's going to be truly interesting as we sit here in 2025. We know where the story is today, but we're not even at halftime. We're not even halfway through the book for crying. We're maybe chapter 2, maybe chapter 3 out of 10 to 20 chapters here. It's going to be super interesting. These are the things that I get excited about as an old man now, that I get to sit on the sidelines. So for the next 10 years, when you're 40, and the next 20 years, when you're 50, and to see how that journey plays out, what I have no doubts, whether you become in administration, whether you do something with the state of Mississippi, whether you are the head coach at Mississippi Valley State in 20 years. The only thing I do know is it's going to be a journey, a life of impact. That maybe that's the word I see for you, is the impact. You are making an impact, and you're going to continue that word impact. Like, I kind of have this vision of, like, it's just going to continue to get bigger and bigger, and that's what excites me, is to be able to see, hopefully pour in again from the sideline and be able to watch from the sideline that play out. And that's kind of what I think of you. But you're still so young. I still have this enigma of, like, I don't know, man. You have so many talents. That's the thing that, some track coaches, and you guys know who you are listening. You're like, man, there's nothing else I was going to do but be a track coach. You have so many talents, my friend, and it's super exciting to be look into the window of that journey.
Well, I appreciate it. It's funny you say that because I've heard it before, but especially since the me talking in my car, like we spoke on prior to recording, and people been, man, got something bigger for you planned, or
Mm-hmm.
you're not done with you yet, or whatever it is that they
Mm-hmm.
might say, and that, like, I'm hearing that again because certain things throughout just consistency and stuff. Because even with the healing era, and all that, like, started looking at like what's the ideas that began to repeat themselves
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and whatnot.
Themes. Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that word. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I started seeing themes and other things, and just noticing, because I'm not sure, where it goes. I could have a plan and they could change. I thought I'd be done paying off my car this December, and here I
Right.
am now. But
Right.
I appreciate that. I thank you for recognizing it and seeing that.
Here's what's cool about that. I want to speak into that a little bit because it's interesting that, as an 18-ish year old, as you're getting done with high school, and I was like, hey, so what were you thinking about majoring? And you're like, I really didn't know, right? It's crazy to me that we make 18-year-olds pick a major that's going to affect the rest of their life, right? You had a lot of interest and a lot of things you could have gone into, right? And this, where you settle. And society and parents, and I'm not necessarily saying your mom, grandma, and aunt and things like that, but in society in general, our parents and society put a lot of pressure for us to have our crap together as 22, as a college graduate, as 22, 23-year olds. Like, man, you're supposed to know what you're supposed to do with your life. And it's like, bro, I'm 22. My brain's still growing, for crying out loud. So I love that, here as a 30-year-old, and at 30, again, you're supposed to have your crap together. You're supposed to know what you're going to be and be that for the rest of life. Man, at 30, I was a track coach. At 31, I was a professional poker player. At 32, I was a track sales guy. At 49, almost 50, I'm an advocate servant for track and field coaches. That is what I was supposed to be. I couldn't have been that as a 25-year-old. I couldn't
Mhm.
have been that as a 30-year-old. It had taken me to become 40 and 45 and to have a lot of different experiences and meet a lot of great people that have been in your life to actually find out, like, oh, this is the calling. This is the calling. So you as a 30-year-old, bro, I was on my first career. I'm on my third now. Who knows? You're on your third, actually. I just think there's just so much greatness coming for you, my friend, and I'm super excited for that, for you, your friend, your network, all your, your village, if you will. I just think it's just going to be so cool, man. I'm pumped to, like I said, be able to watch it from the sidelines.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's been a journey for sure. And I keep saying, I used to say when I was jokingly when I was in high school or like early college, like, oh, my life's a movie. But golly, but I'm happy for it. I enjoyed it.
It's
The
more of a
journey.
TV show, and what I mean by that is, like, there's episodes,
Somebody
like,
recently said it's like a
yeah,
series.
yeah, it's like series. It's exactly right. Unlike the Fast and Furious, most movies don't get to be 8, 10, whatever, how many friggin' movies there is on that. TV shows,
Right.
there's a lot of episodes, and that's what it is. That's right, dude. Thank you so much. One of the most valuable things, and we didn't even get into it. You don't have enough going on, so you went back to grad school. You're now doing that and taking care of grandma. I love that for her, and I know she thinks that a special time as well. Be able to hang out with her grandson. That's really cool, man. But you took time out of your busy schedule to come on the show, and that's one of the most valuable things you can give me, man. I'm really grateful for you.
So thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me on and everything. I'll add you even one as well. You talking about that. One thing Coach JJ used to always say, like, it's about the journey, not the destination.
That's exactly right. It's hard to see the destination until we get there, but you know what? I can affect the journey. I love that. JJ, because I know you're watching. Love you, brother. Appreciate you. Jay, will I see you at convention this year in Dallas?
We will be out there.
Awesome. Love it. Can't wait. Super excited about that. Was just talking to Sam Seams. I think it's going to be, him and his crew seem to top it every single year. And I just know
Mhm.
2025 is going to be one of those amazing years. So, Jay, thank you so much, man. Grateful for your time. Thanks for being here today. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And
Thank
thank you. Absolutely, man. And thank you guys and gals for being here again. We spent a lot of time in his athleticism, and I thought honestly that might be all we get in today, but I wanted to get into that coaching. But I just think it's interesting to see journeys. And honestly, we didn't really approach this, but I love myth busting, right? So I love, Jay, we didn't talk about this. And we're not going to talk about it because we're running out of time, but I'm going to just drop it at the bomb and drop the mic and leave. I love an African American male who pole vaults, right? That's against the
societal
not
norm,
society, but prejudices, I think, is probably what I'm looking
prejudice.
for. I love an African American who plays tennis. I
Indeed.
love, I told you I love twist, right?
Indeed.
You're not supposed to
Indeed.
do these things. I love someone who's educated. I love someone who becomes a decathlete. These are all things that, big air quotes here, African Americans are not supposed to do. It's all malarkey. If you put your mind to it and get a little lucky, you had people around you to do
Mhm.
this as well. It doesn't matter what color, race, creed you are, you can be successful at what you want to be successful at. But sometimes we need that modeled. And guess what? Jay becomes that model. People now have seen him as a tennis player. Like, well, wait a minute, maybe I can be a tennis player. They see him as a decathlon, a multis coach, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's just fantastic. So I love that modeling that he does that he may not even be aware of. And I think it's important. So, all right. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here. Join us next week. We'll do it all over again. Thanks, guys.